All right, Max is serenading us tonight, so...
That was quick. We didn't even get like a pre-podcast talk.
Well, do the intro for us, and we'll get going.
I don't know.
We're almost in agreement. Hit us up at almostinagreement@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. We're sort of theoretically kind of on Instagram if you want to see our one photo we have on there. But the best way to do anything as far as interact with us is go to our website, almostinagreement.com. I've got the the 22 election guide. It's going to give you a full list of all the candidates. It's going to have a link if they have an interview with me, a link to their website as I get them filled in, as well as links to KGIS and Knox County Election Commission, so you can check your registration status and where your district and polling location is, all that kind of stuff. Also, please go to your favorite podcast provider. Follow us there, subscribe to us, tell your friends about us, and give the 5-star reviews and that kind of stuff. That's the best way to get the word out. It's the weekend, baby. There's no major sporting events on, even though we did have a big ball game earlier.
You would not say that Russia and Ukraine is a big sporting event?
I mean, it kind of is, but we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, almost in everybody. Here we go. All right, so fine. Let's start about...
The Winter Classic's going on right now.
Is it?
Outdoor game in Nashville.
What is Winter Classic?
They're doing an outdoor hockey game at the Nissan Stadium right now.
Oh.
I thought the Winter Classic was the New York
Actually, yeah, I think you're right. I think this is just
the outdoor series, and they do a couple of them every year.
Sorry, this is just an outdoor series.
Well, AC's school that he coaches for has a big event in Chattanooga.
Right there, it's the anti-gum chewing collective. Unfucking believable.
That's nuts.
Unfucking believable. We'll get back into that later. So, I don't know. We can start with Ukraine and shit. For the record, I was 100% wrong about Putin's motives, or at least, Putin's real motives. He did speak of the NATO issues in some of the lead up to this, but at the end of the day, this is not about NATO. This is about the return of Russian imperialism and all that kind of shit. And there we go.
There's a mixture of reasons getting thrown around.
Well, so here's a question. So, believe it. I mean, so the eastern part of Ukraine, and there was some, local militia wanting to be their own country kind of thing, right?
That was part of the unified Ukraine until Biden and his former boss, Obama, went in there and helped with the coup, which installed the current government, which is who this eastern set is rebelling against.
Exactly.
Wanting to get back into part of Russia because they'd rather be part of Russia than this new Ukraine that the U.S. built.
No, they don't want to be part of Russia. They want to be a sovereign state.
Right.
And so...
But they were okay with their sovereign state, or their part of Ukraine-ness prior to the U.S. coming in and removing the government that was in place and replacing it about 8 years ago, where the Civil War's been going on since.
Possibly. But this is the question I have is... so... These people think that the separatists or whatever that want to be their own country separate from Ukraine, right?
Right.
And Russia, don't get me wrong, I don't think that that's why Russia went into there, but that's what Russia was saying. It's like, hey, we want to support these people, the separate country kind of thing.
Like, what? They asked us for help.
Yeah. They asked us for help. I'm not.
They asked us for help and to bring all our tanks with us.
Exactly. So that's what Putin's saying, right?
Well, and that's what everybody's getting on Trump for saying was the genius move on Putin's part, because in the world law legal speak, that's kind of what he did. He said, hey, we acknowledge these as independent states, and we're going to bring in our peacekeeping forces instead of it being, we're not invading Ukraine. We are going into these former eastern portions of Ukraine that are now independent nations and keeping them safe.
Exactly. And how many times has the United States done that?
All the time. Constantly.
Vietnam, Korea. Like, it's like, oh, these people want to be their own people. Kuwait, like, we need to keep these bad people out. Like, they're their own people.
Right.
And so it's kind of we're mad at them for doing that, but... He's doing. Well, that's the question. Is like,
I mean, you go back to 2016, and we're pitching a fit that the Russians are using social media and other things to meddle in our elections. Are we going to really try to pretend at any level that the U.S. isn't in all sorts of elections all around the world,
yeah,
especially in these democracies that we built? That we're not in there doing our part to to help influence to get the leader that we want in. That's going to help us with our ends.
Yeah, we have our own bean counters in Kuwait saying who won the election.
Right. It's what's the old saying? You don't throw stones if you're living in a glass house.
And you don't throw goats if you're living in a grass house.
Okay. I feel like this would be the appropriate time to insert our one website reference that we are obligated to every episode. But I mean, it's pretty. It's kind of scary.
It is. It's crazy. And then now, I mean, with China, with Taiwan. Thank you. That's
my favorite.
crazy.
I saw Taliban put out a statement. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, the Taliban put out a statement asking for Ukraine and Russia to settle their differences peacefully.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
No, you're full of shit.
No, it's real.
Well, China's now they threatened the United States and they threatened Japan. Like, I didn't know China had a huge beef with Japan.
I mean, they've been long term.
Oh, yeah.
Like prior to
did you see the statement today where they were like, if we unify Taiwan back to China, and Japan sends one person, one boat, one plane, we will attack them with nuclear missiles until they surrender for a second time.
Damn.
I was like, now call out World War II, bitches. like again, you will surrender again from bombing your country. And I was like, damn. So then the other question is, does North Korea go like, no one's doing shit with this? Russia, Ukraine.
Sure, I'm sure one of the
China,
Kim Jong-un,
Taiwan. He's like, let's just take back South Korea.
Just take the rest of Korea. While I read it, like while the chaos is going on. I mean, that's the scary part about this. There are 1,000 ways that this could go from here, and only a couple of them aren't awful. I mean, right now, at least, it's just sanctioned games. But I mean, even that, like, apparently China hadn't been buying wheat from Russia because there's some sort of, like, mold or fungus that some Russian farms were having issues with their wheat. Hopefully Argot, because it'd be fun, but that's a whole separate thing.
That's what causes zombie apocalypse.
But China as a policy was not importing wheat from Russia for this reason. Well, as soon as all the Western sanctions start kicking in, China's like, that's fine, we'll buy some of your wheat if you guys need to get rid of it.
Yeah, I saw they had like a way around which I don't really understand, the stopping Russia from purchasing. They were talking about some kind of...
Yeah, they were freezing a lot of like assets, and that's where I'm going to get confused.
So they were talking about turning off like some kind of switch that does not allow... I guess like if I had a credit card, like I'm a Russian and I'm in America... Right, and I try to use my credit card. Now it does not link back to the United States.
I don't know how much it goes to the personal
Russia
part.
Or whatever.
I mean, probably on some level of personal banking, but the big side of it is like the bank-to-bank stuff. So like a major Russian bank that's trying to move money through accounts that are not based in Russia, the SWIFT system, which we've used.
SWIFT, that's it. Yeah,
we've used it before. I mean, that's like when you wire money in real sums, not Western Union. It's like Western Union on a bank scale as opposed to an individual scale is what the SWIFT system is. And so somewhere in that, I don't know exactly how it works, but somewhere in that there's basically a guarantor in the middle that, yeah, I guarantee that this money came out of their account and it's on its way to your account, but until it physically gets there or however the actual transfer goes, the SWIFT system is the one that kind of manages the whole thing. Yeah. And so you take that away from major banks, that takes a lot of their ability to move money around to get cash because they need cash or to go out and buy, missiles or whatever the fuck they want to buy with them.
So do you think Putin's Capital One card doesn't work right now?
I mean, probably.
I think they have, in the past day or so, actually put sanctions on. I don't know if they've begun, but I guess they've initiated sanctions on Putin and Sergei Lavrov.
Right, they've done some individual sanctions as well as individual businesses.
Now, I saw you individual banks. They have now blocked from that SWIFT banking system.
Yeah, I mean it's
not all Russian banks, but it's
and it's one of those that when we see these things happening, it's like we don't talk about. We understand the point of the impact of these sanctions. The point is to be like, hey, knock it off. But at the end of the day, the people who usually end up paying the business end of these sanctions are the people that don't have a choice in the conversation anyway. Right. Like really the best case scenario is that the Russian people revolt against Putin and his leadership because they're getting starved out of existence because of all the sanctions going in place, and they can't get groceries, they can't buy food, all the different shit that's going on. And so that's, but at the end of the day, the people that actually end up taking the majority of the hit from the sanctions that we in the West put on them, it's not going to be Putin. He's going to be fine.
Cracks me up is like these YouTube or TikTok, and they're like, there's all these people in Russia that don't approve of, what's going on with Putin. And I was like, have you watched United States politics? There's 1,000 people on either side of every topic. Yeah, I don't know if that's a genuine support.
But the big difference is now that Biden's president, Ted Cruz didn't disappear. That's kind of what happens a little bit more often over there than over here.
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
but still, the 16-year-old making her TikTok account that says nobody in Russia approves of this invasion. Are you?
There was in protests. I mean, they've arrested hundreds of people in some of the major cities.
Yeah,
right. Though they're not arresting them when they just kill them and put them in their mobile. Because I saw a headline on that.
Just send them off to Siberia.
They arrest hundreds of people when, the Braves win the World Series. Also, right. So how credible is this protesting or rioting or fanfare, happiness,
Speaking of, they're coming here. They're gonna.
I saw your post.
The Braves championship tour.
Why?
It's coming to Maryville and Knoxville.
They're just going up the interstate. Oh, they're coming to Maryville and Knoxville.
Yeah, they're Friday. This coming Friday, they'll be in Maryville, and then Saturday they'll be at Thompson.
Oh, I thought you said they were just driving through town onto a major city.
Goes back to that conversation we're having last week.
Like stretch limos holding the World Series.
I mean, they're bringing the trophy, so I figure AC will try to make a trip down there.
Yeah, we got to wear pearls. Talk about pearls. How about Tennessee basketball tonight? Fucking beating Pearl.
Taking it to Mr. Bruce Pearl.
They beat Mr. Pearl?
They did.
Yeah.
It's a 5-point game, I think.
Something like that.
6-9, 6-4, something like that.
Number 17 Tennessee beats number 2 or 3. They 2, 3.
I thought there were 4, but
4.
Whatever. Top 5.
Top 5.
Yeah, close enough. But going back though, I mean, I think one of the interesting things is that I saw as far as a post goes, it's interesting. It's like, this is all part of, maybe not directly, but a big part of what's going on right now is some of the stuff with Trump and Hunter Biden conversation and all that kind of stuff with what was the company that Hunter was working for?
In Russia?
In Ukraine. And where Trump was withholding an arms sale to Ukraine so Ukraine could keep the Russians at bay, which actually at the time, at least the argument was it wasn't to keep the Russians at bay, it was to keep these 2 eastern provinces that were rebelling in check. But, potato on that one. But what is the fucking name of that company? It's going to drive me crazy now. The oil and gas company in Ukraine that Biden, or that Hunter was on the board, having no reason of being there.
I don't remember a specific name of a company.
I mean, it was out there anyway. But that's part. This is. I mean, long history. This has been the entire history of the Russian Empire and Eastern Europe and all these flexes and the Holy Roman Empire and all the different flexing back and forth in the Baltic states and all that kind of shit. This isn't new stuff. There's no I don't know that any country's borders have been stable there in the eastern part of Europe for written history.
So my wife got mad at me, not mad at me, but she was like, "You're an asshole," and I was like, "Yeah, I know I'm an asshole." But
some smart man to admit it right then and there.
I guess I am.
Okay, you're right.
Did you see the Snake Island? Have you seen that video?
No.
So Snake Island's obviously an island over there in Ukraine, and there was a Russian battleship or whatever, and they were coming up on this island, and there was 13 Ukrainian people on this island, and they radioed to the island, and they were like, "This is the USS whatever, not USS whatever, the
RSS maybe, I don't know."
Yeah, the Russian battleship. You need to surrender and lay down arms right now. And then the Ukrainians, they have the audio, like you hear the audio, and the other was like, "Oh, what does he do?" He's like, "I don't know, tell him to fuck off." He's like, "Really? Yeah, I don't know what else to do." So the guy's like, "Russian battleship, fuck off."
I did hear that.
And I fucking laughed.
I read about that.
I laughed my ass off. And then I laughed even harder when it went back to the CNN analyst, and I was like, and then all 13 people died. And then I laughed again, and I was like, what did you think the outcome was? Those motherfuckers were, and they were talking about like the how strong these Ukrainians are on, like, they're standing their ground and all that kind of stuff. But like the whole interaction, I was like, that was hilarious.
And it's pretty badass, and it's. I mean, I think the initial is pretty funny, but then getting completely erased is a little bit yeah. But what was it, the former heavyweight champion of the world in boxing? It's a Ukrainian guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess his brother's a mayor of a smaller city in Ukraine who was also a world championship boxer. Hey, have me one of those sweet white claws while you're in there, please.
I can't get there.
But they're, and then...
Heard something about that. Klitschko brothers.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I was like, is one of them in politics? Because they mentioned him. I was like, is that the boxer?
Like one of them was the mayor.
Yeah.
He wants one of those. I want one of my sweet sparkling sodas. But yeah, apparently, yeah, and then dude, actual president of Ukraine's out there in his flak jacket hanging out, and that's been a big.
Volodymyr
Look at this badass.
Now the other funny thing is, I'm like, man, I wish this was my grandmother. But there was like this old grandmother talking to a Russian soldier.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see that one? She's talking to a Russian soldier.
That sounds like something your mom would do.
Yeah.
Like your actual mom would do.
Well, you're the second person to say that. And she was talking to this Russian soldier about being here, whatever, and then handed him some sunflower seeds and said, will you keep these in your pocket so I can watch these sunflowers grow in your rotting corpse?
Pretty badass.
Yeah. Like,
don't know how violent it is, but I've heard it.
Shit.
I'd seen it a couple times.
Yeah, I saw it too. Like, I don't care if it's true. It is true.
It's true. Max says so. But yeah, that's Ukraine, everybody. Everybody's up to date. You're welcome.
We have no legitimate facts on it. We know there's people killing each. Well, there was an interesting thing that I said, that I saw. That said there's been more people die in the last, like, I don't know, what, 4 days now? Mm-hmm. Than the United States has lost in Afghanistan and Iraq.
I mean, that's like Russian military 101, though. They
like, just throw people out.
They're a cannon fodder army.
Because I thought I read since, like, 2014, since, I guess, like, the end of Crimea, as far as in those two separatist regions, that, like, 14,000 people have died total, I guess, in fighting and insurgency fighting.
Well, I just heard in the last 4 days, like 40,000. I don't know if that's correct or not.
That's why we're pretty much kind of in a fog of war.
Yeah,
we're kind of seeing what the Russians are saying, but what limited information is able to come out of Ukraine.
Well, that's the one that they were talking about a couple weeks ago when this was first starting to get rolling, is that this is the first time since early Vietnam that there are not embedded reporters in U.S. forces. Like all the troops they'd sent over prior. Now, at least as far as we know right now, there's no U.S. troops in Ukraine doing anything. But even the ones in Poland and Romania that were sent over there to be
part of the UN,
right?
Which is the first ever enacting the UN, whatever.
But either way, this is the first time in a long time that there's been no reporters with our guys over there,
which is correct and should be.
You don't think there should be reporters in there?
No, there shouldn't be reporters in there.
Which even then, we don't have troops in Ukraine.
Right.
No, we have them on all the
having press with our troops in Poland and Romania isn't going to tell us much there.
No, but when they move in from Poland and Romania to do stuff, that's when they're supposed to be handy. It's not like they're like, oh, hey, now that we're actually in action, come on and bring your reporters back in.
Did you ever hear from AC?
No. He's got. I mean, we got plenty of booze.
we do. We have all.
And I guess in fairness, the rum's still mine. He hasn't paid for me yet because I didn't lose that rum to him. But no, I haven't heard from him. I figured I'd get at least an excited response from the Braves championship tour.
Well,
I'm sure he knew that before I said it anyway.
You know how you see the notification, but you don't really. It's like a bleep. I thought for sure that was from him. And then I clicked on it, and I was like, "Oh no!"
You saw what the text said, but not who sent it. Yeah.
Exactly. The Braves are coming to town. That.
So, how underwhelming is the whole Supreme Court justice being nominated in the middle of this Ukrainian war? Like her, you know, big day of being nominated, and there's just like so much more news to talk about it. It's got to be from her point, but it's like, really?
I think Biden had already announced like weeks ago that he was going to have a pick by the end of the month.
Yeah, but you didn't know who it was. Like, it's kind of shitty. Like, I feel bad for her not, like...
Doesn't matter. Every decision that she's a part of, at least for the first year or so, it'll be the first decision, including a black woman justice. Every headline's going to read it that way. The first time there's a case that comes and she is the dissenting voice, first black female Supreme Court justice dissents in case blah, 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 blah. First one she votes for. First one that she gets to write the majority of the minority decision on. Or maybe it's not that, yeah. I mean, because every single time they go through this thing, there's all these different little mechanics of it. And so, like, if it's even if it's like an 8-1, the one person that voted against whatever gets to write the dissenting opinion. And when that's her, it'll be her, and the headline will read, first black woman dissents.
Well, you know,
she'll get plenty of press if that's what you're worried about.
I know. I said
Justice Sonia Sotomayor had the same thing happen to her. It made the presses, and they're like, oh, first.
I don't think that and maybe because of the patriarchy or ever, but we didn't live in a world that made that big a fucking deal with it back then. No, not as much. I'm sure for a little bit of time, yeah, when it was the nuance of it before the nuance wore off. I'm just saying for the sake of her ego that Max is worried about, she'll get plenty of press specifically on her uniqueness.
Okay.
That's all I was getting at. I'm not saying that she's going to get any more or less coverage than the long term of some of the other first. Clarence Thomas. I mean, Clarence Thomas was still references like the first black judge, like way at the end of his career. I mean, it's a fact, but...
you know, I said this in our text to each other talking about it, but like it's... I hate that how they did it. Like, I really wish, like, I don't agree with her size of politics, but when you look at her resume, like, how do you not deny her being a phenomenal candidate?
She'll be the first that I guess was a federal defense
attorney. Like, there's just so many great things about her, and I just find it shitty that, like, we got to hire a black person, so we're only going to interview a black person, instead of saying we're going to interview a bunch of people and she's the best person. To me, it's kind of a knock on saying, well, she wouldn't have got the job if we would have added a white person in. No, she would have fucking got the job if we added a white person in, because she's the fucking best person for the job. Like, that's the problem I have.
Right, no, I get it. It's the implied racism of low expectation. Yeah. It's exactly what you said. It's that if not for...
If we would have only interviewed...
Right, if we would have opened this up to everybody...
But she probably wouldn't have got the job, so we had to close it down because black people are inferior to everybody else, that we have to make it only black people we interview, and that's bullshit. And that's the problem I have. Like, black people should be mad about that situation.
I agree.
Not that she's not the best candidate for the job.
And I guess for devil's advocate for it, because I totally follow and agree with what you're saying, but I think the devil's advocate for it is that, you know, who's the guy, the beer keg guy? The
beer guy? Duffman?
No, the beer guy that Trump appointed. There's always, he likes to drink beer. Fuck. Not the last one, the one before the last one, that Trump put in.
Oh, on Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh.
Yeah, the Judge Kavanaugh one. The argument would be, why wasn't she put in then? Well, because she's not a Republican. But, you know, like, that would be, like, if Kavanaugh was against her now, she should have been Kavanaugh. She like, if it was a level playing field.
Well, back then she was not a federal. She was not on the federal judge. Like,
but even though, either way, if all things being equal, if Kavanaugh was on the short list, she would have beat Kavanaugh. There's no question. But that's because he's a Republican and she's a Democrat, or she's left leaning, he's right leaning, whatever. And so it's the second layer of the partisanship on top of whatever. It's just, I agree with you. It's just dumb. It's literally saying it's maybe not intentionally. It's at least at minimum accidentally acknowledging that if we had a white guy in this race, you wouldn't beat him.
Yeah, and it's shitty. I really have a huge problem with them that going. Like, you weren't the best candidate for the job. You were the best black female for the job. Because that's all we looked at.
Right. No, I get it. And yeah, I think it's, I agree with you. It says, it may not say it outright, but it definitely implies it strongly. And there's no, you can't argue the counter on this one, because we don't know any better, because we didn't get the opportunity to see another option.
Well, it's not like, we the first, Obama being the first black president, he went against every single person out there. Like, he was president. Like, you can't deny that. But there's, I really hate it. I hate it.
I feel you. Feel you for sure. So, going back to AC's trip to, Chattanooga, is that what you said, or is it Atlanta?
Chattanooga for the Deep Freeze tournament.
Yeah, so, on the anti-gum chewing conversation.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
It's interesting. Like, it's an interesting conversation to have. Because really what it gets to is, so we've already established that our school board's not smart enough to run our schools. That's what's already going in place with the judge's orders. And so this is the same attorney, one of the same attorneys that brought forth the mask suit, and why we have masks on our kids still, going through with this one. So he's obviously figured out that if he plays the American with Disability Acts right, he can get a federal judge to do whatever he wants in Knox County schools, regardless of our local authority.
Well, the thing is, like, on that gum chewing or people chewing bothers this person, then everybody else should change what they do. What if you had somebody that was, like, I don't know, bright colors? They had an adverse to bright colors. That kid would have been
super fucked back in the 90s.
So now anybody in his class cannot wear bright colors to school. That's where we're coming. So I understand if you have a disability and we should accommodate you appropriately.
Reasonable accommodation.
Yes.
But that's the key little legalese word that's problematic in here, because reasonable accommodation is very subjective.
Yeah, but when you infringe on other people's rights...
School students have no rights. That's actually a legal statement.
Okay. Well, when human being rights...
Students don't have those rights.
Humans don't...
Students don't have those...
Students don't have a right to drink. Are you that what you're telling me? They don't have a right to eat? Is that what you're saying? So they don't have that right to eat?
In the United States, as far as I understand it, a minor does not have the same rights as an adult. Yes. That's what I'm saying.
When I was in high school, it was policy the entire school year. No chewing gum in class, no eating in class, no drinking in class.
Well, that if that was the policy, I would understand that.
Right.
That's how most policies are. I think it's the STEM Academy is where the students at. It's left up to teachers' discretion.
I remember in high school, we had
I'm cool with too. As long as it's not disruptive, and that was a lot of times that's why it was taken out, was because it became disruptive. You had somebody opening up bags of chips.
So, what if you have a kid that has some kind of concentration problem, and only chewing gum helps him concentrate? If he's got his jaw moving, chewing gum, he can concentrate. Then you have another kid that has a disability that he or she cannot listen to gum chewing. What do we do here?
You gotta,
they both have a disability,
right? Okay.
So now we need to. Who wins?
I wonder if there was any kind of mediation process with the school itself or with the individual teachers.
Well,
because I don't think it's something you would have to make across the board for the school. But talk to those individual teachers that person is in, which apparently one of the classes was some weird hybrid. It was like a longer class because it was during lunch period.
So the kids were allowed to eat.
I was like, when did we start having class during lunch? I was like, this is weird.
Not the same thing. I need to ask my daughter because she goes there. Yeah. Like, do you have a class during lunch?
Right. Apparently, as I was reading on it on somebody who was talking about it on Facebook, and I was reading on it, is L&N being what it is very different functionally than other schools.
Yeah, I think some of it was kind of like a college prep kind of class.
Well, they have what they call a Genius Hour, which is it's basically an elongated lunch break, or it's elongated lunch. So instead of having normal lunch and doing like 4 periods a day like we used to do in high school or whatever, they have basically 5 periods, but they shorten each of the standard 4 and stretch out the lunch one. And so that becomes elective opportunities as well. And so some kids are doing different things. It's not just like a study period, lunch break. It's go grab your lunch and then go down to, I don't know, the student council meeting room and do the student council thing during your genius hour.
Hey, me, she's 16, so she should be up at this time.
But I mean, my point being is that apparently it's a very active lunch period that they do there because they don't have a full lunch room. Apparently, because of the way that building is and some other stuff.
Again, I wonder if the student and the parents ever tried to approach the teachers and like, hey, she has this issue that it's inhibiting her from, it's a doctor diagnosed issue.
Right, and I guess one of the things that's very problematic, at least in as much as I've seen on it and reading the WBAR story that had at least a couple pages of the suit in it, is that it's unclear whether it's all day that they're asking for, or it's just this particular lunch period thing that they do. Because potentially she could be taking an AP something course during that time, and the other kids that are taking that same course with her are running and grabbing their lunch and eating their lunch while taking the course, because that's what this genius hour thing is. And it's like, this is the only chance I get to eat.
So I text my daughter and I said, what is genius hour at STEM? She said, basically like a free period sort of thing, club time. Right.
So like if you're in like the choir club, or not choir club, but like
engineering club.
Some of any of the club stuff. Gymnastics club. I don't know what it is. I don't know what all those clubs there are, but
again, I wonder if there was any kind of
student government club. I mean,
effort made before taking
but that's what I'm saying. It's unclear
to the higher level.
It's unclear if it was an issue across the board or if it's this one particular section of the day that's problematic. And again, it goes back to
it's throughout. I'm assuming it's an issue she has 24/7.
I mean, that I could see where you could make that assumption.
What is club time? A short period in the day for clubs.
What are clubs?
She said GSA, D&D club, journalism, prom committee.
Right.
So bullshit.
I mean, but again, we don't know. We don't know if it's an all-day thing. We don't know if it's just inside this thing. And that maybe she's into D&D and she's in D&D club and everybody's in D&D club eating.
Yeah, because
and she can't focus on her 7th level wizard.
Yeah.
I don't know D&D at all. Can't tell.
No, you're good.
Sweet, that was right.
Well, there is 7th level wizard, like that could be in anything.
Whatever the dorkiest thing that could come out of my mouth, it was accurate. Yes. But it's I don't know. It's again the legal term of reasonable accommodations, because that's what the American with Disabilities Act things is built around. It's like public schools have to make reasonable accommodations for students with disabilities. Reasonable accommodations is a very, very subjective term, and I don't know what to do with that. And again, I understand that there's case by case conversation to be had, but again, we're going to have a federal judge come down and make a decision on this. And to be fair, the federal judge's decision could be like, no, that's not a reasonable accommodation, and it might not be. It might be it might not be that hard to be like, hey, you're not allowed to chew gum during math class. That's a normal school thing. It shouldn't be that big a deal to enforce that rule. Because we don't know, as of right now, what particular thing that they're going after during the school day, or if it's all day.
And AC's team got second place in the tournament.
Fucking losers.
Yeah. They're not fucking losers. They're the first losers.
Yeah, top loser.
Then you're the best loser there is.
Best loser around. I don't know. I had a fairly busy week. It was a slower week than I've had. I did schedule a few of the mayoral candidates coming up in the next week or so. That's exciting.
Who?
Let me pull my calendar so I can quote myself correctly.
Superintendent was decided upon?
Yeah, we do have the new superintendent, which was apparently the no-brainer that was a gimme or whatever from my other source.
He was already a part of the Knox County school systems.
Yeah. And apparently, like somebody else I was talking to was saying
Tennessee, Knox County school systems.
Right, State of Tennessee schools. Knox County Division, yes. Exactly. That's how it needs to be titled. The way we title it is misleading. I'm sorry. It's a fact.
See, I listen to our other podcasts.
No, I appreciate it. And the sheriff's another one that I think that it's not really Knox County Sheriff. It's State of Tennessee Policing, Knox County Division. It's the same kind of thing. Like, they don't work for, they have some things that they work with the mayor's office and commission on. Like, when we want to build a new school for Knox County schools, that is a collaborative effort between the city or the county and the school board, because the county does have to kick in more than their standard funds for schools. They have to help allocate land and all the kind of different stuff but outside of that, a county commissioner, or Mayor Jacobs for that matter, that's one of those things that pisses me off. I always go on my rants about the Knox Dems about. They like to shit on Mayor Jacobs is going to ruin our schools. It's like, Mayor Jacobs has nothing to do with our schools. The only thing Mayor Jacobs can truly do to our schools is flat refuse their budget if it goes anything over the state minimum required by the county. Or by the state, excuse me.
I really want you to get somebody that is on the voucher.
I am working on that. Actually, that's a super exciting. On Friday, I have what are we calling it? We're student-centered. It is the student-centered school funding discussion. I have a current school board member and a person whom I don't have my phone, so I can't find my text, who is a teacher at one of the private schools and is a member of the American Foundation for Children-Centered Learning or something like that. I don't remember what it is, but they are
pro-charter.
They are pro-charter, pro-vouchers. They are very active in the current things that are going on in the state as far as pushing the state to go to a voucher system and expand our charter system.
Yeah, I really want to understand how that voucher program goes.
That's what I'm hoping to get out of that one.
Because you keep on asking people that have nothing to do with that their opinion on it.
Well, I mean, for school board, it does. It doesn't. Their opinion matters. Here, to be on the grand scheme of things,
their opinion does not matter because their opinion
they have to deal with the
not matter.
Right, they have to deal with the consequences of it. But to me, if you're running for school board and you're not anti-voucher, that means you don't really care about schools. Like, that means you don't really care about the funding model and all this different stuff that's going on in schools. To me, that's a strong indicator of what you think schools can and can't do.
Which, don't finish your thought. I just want to say I'm up next.
Okay, no, that was what I was just saying. I'm saying,
okay.
like, I think that is.
He had his hand up.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna go run for school board and say, I don't care or I'm not against vouchers, whether it's within the power of the office or not. If you're saying it, because the school board does have a legislative agenda that they go and they talk to state senate and state legislators about, and until this year, it's always been top of the list that Knox County Schools is firmly against vouchers. This is the first time it's not been on the list this year. And if you're running for school board right now saying you don't care if the state allows vouchers in, that's saying you don't care about how the schools are going to get funded. You think that somehow you're going to compete with these vouchers and these charter schools coming in.
You're not saying I don't care. You're saying if they're indifferent.
Right. They
don't have a position either way.
No, I mean, or if they're okay with vouchers, that speaks poorly for what they think the schools can do. And why are you running for school board if you don't think you're going? Like, if you want to go make a positive change.
No, what I'm saying is, if you say I don't care if they have school vouchers, is different than I don't care if they ban school vouchers. Either way, you're saying I'm for school vouchers or I'm against school vouchers. So you're saying person that does not care either way what happens with school vouchers or not school vouchers. So they're indifferent to school vouchers. Not they don't care.
I mean, if anybody...
they don't care, but when you say I don't care about school vouchers... is different than... If
anybody's response was, it doesn't matter what I think about them because that's out of my hands, okay, that's an answer that I can understand. But if it's, if the state goes to, if it's, I think vouchers are fine, I think that'd be a good thing for the future of schools or your kids. It'd be like, I don't know, it'd be like being like a top sales manager or marketing manager or something like that for McDonald's and being like, I don't care if Hardee's hired a better person to do the same job as me over there. Like, of course you care. It matters to you because you're competing with them. And you don't want Hardee's to have the good players. You want the good players on your team. And if you're running for school board and you don't care that the state is going to take away part of your team, then I feel like that's kind of counterintuitive to you wanting to do something other than to, let the schools fall apart.
That's why I say it's indifferent.
Right.
You care, someone that's indifferent to vouchers is an issue. You should have a stance either way.
Right, and if you're running for school board and you're okay with the idea of vouchers, then you should be. Then your real response should be how you are going to make Knox County schools compete with private schools and be as good or better than. Because then it becomes a marketing game and you're trying to sell to get more students.
Yeah, see, that's the problem I have with school vouchers. Is you're just giving so-called rich people a discount. Maybe,
and we don't, again, like, that's the part that we don't know.
That's how some people see it.
I agree, but I'm just saying, we don't know, as part of this thing, if they are going to change the accreditation standards or anything else, if it's going to be you get Knox County schools or you get this, or Catholic, and that's it, and there's no school that's allowed to accept charters that's somewhere in the middle of the price range, where it's either high dollar, where those people who are already paying for it are now getting a discount.
Yeah.
But those of us in the middle or the lower end, well, now we have an option that we can get into something that we think is better, but not that much better because we can't afford that much better. That's the real question to me, to say that vouchers are a viable part of the conversation, because there's no way if all that we get is the current charter systems and schools that are in, like some of these private schools that are already coming into Tennessee that are big national charter schools that are going to be 2 or 3 times the voucher price anyway. No, that doesn't help us out. Unless it comes down to that I can take my voucher and take a little bit of money, not a ton of money, 5% of my salary for both kids to get in there or something like that, and get them into a private school that has better outcomes. And that's another thing too. There's a lot of argument that these charter schools don't have better outcomes than the public school systems they compete against.
But what's gonna happen in that case if what you're laying out is correct? And I said this before: is if it's $5,000 a kid voucher to go to whatever, Catholic is going to raise their tuition by $3,000,
right?
And then the rich people are getting a $2,000 discount, but it still puts it out of reach for other people.
But again, that's what I'm saying. If part of it doesn't open up new competition in the schools, new schools coming in, they are competing with Catholic to keep Catholic from going too high, are competing with Knox County schools to force Knox County schools to have better outcomes. If there's no new competition in the conversation, then yeah, that's all it's going to be is a discount for the top rater.
And if I was an administrator at Catholic and that's that situation, I'd be like, fuck yeah, $3,000 more a student, let's do it.
Yep.
These people are happy.
Sam, you were going to say something like 5 minutes ago. You raised your hand.
As far as school funding, I believe I was reading, I think it's either already passed or it's in the process of being passed, a new funding.
Right.
They're trying to redo the state funding for how the state funds so much money, per child. And I think that's one of the pushbacks that some people have against the charters and the vouchers, as they see some as the private schools, if the state's giving, so much per student, regardless, across the board, per student.
See, but it's per enrolled student. That's one of the things that gets out of control in the conversation that I don't think most people, when they're arguing against vouchers, knows. If I pull my kids out of Rocky Hill, whether it's I pull them out and move to Texas, or I pull them out and homeschool them, or I pull them out and go to Catholic, Rocky Hill loses the percentage per year that the state pays per student for each of my kids if I pull them out. So again, $5,000 is the round number we keep playing with. If the state says each student in Knox County gets $5,000 from the state, if my kids aren't in Knox County schools anymore, not in Rocky Hill loses $10,000.
So do they lose that $10,000 whether there's a voucher system in place and you decide to homeschool your kids?
Yes, they lose that either way. It doesn't matter. If you take your kids out of school right now, if you take them out of Knox County schools altogether, Knox County schools as a whole will lose whatever the number is. 5,000 is what we're playing with, but whatever the actual number is per student pulled from the schools. Again, whether I move to Texas with them, whether I send them to Catholic, whether I homeschool them, doesn't matter. If my kids are not in Knox County schools, Knox County Schools loses that money from the state. Now, to be fair, that doesn't change what the county puts in, because the county puts in what the county puts in regardless. If there's 10 less students or 10,000 less students, Knox County's required pitch in for Knox County Schools still goes in. Does that make sense? The state pays like 55% of our total school's budget. The county pays the other 45%.
Okay.
Right? And so again, we're running on this $5,000 number. Let's roll it up to $5,500 because that's 55% of $10,000. So let's say Knox County Schools has $10,000 per student. $4,500 comes from county, $5,500 comes from state. If I pull my kids out for any reason to do anything else with them, $5,500 comes out. Now that $45,000 still stays in Knox County schools.
So
I don't know what that does to the voucher conversation.
That's what I'm talking about, is the voucher conversation. As far as you take a child out of one school, you want to put them into a charter school or a private school,
I don't
that voucher or coupon for a certain amount of money that aids you in putting them into a separate school.
I would assume it has to be the state portion. I don't think the state can force the counties to contribute to a voucher because that's county money for county schools, where it's state money for students of the state.
Okay.
So that's my assumption. I don't know that. That is a
That's what I'm saying. I think that's where most people see it, is that it's almost incentivizing parents to take their kids out of a local school.
right.
Whether they think it's either failing poorly or they think it's teaching them something their kids shouldn't be taught. For
Right.
whatever reason, they want to put them into a separate school.
I mean, okay, so
But
the
it's
question,
somewhere in that monetary exchange, that voucher for $5,000 or not. Yeah, it wouldn't be $5,000 or whatever.
$5,500 would be my guess on my little model that we just on the little model.
That's what's given per student, but I don't know what's being offered as far as like vouchers for
Right.
a coupon to go to
Right, but I would
the
assume
school
the
of your
voucher would
choice.
be at most the voucher would be the state portion of $5,500.
Because I mean, odds are that voucher is going to go towards some kind of private school that does cost money versus
right.
free public education. Well, quote
think
unquote
so.
free comes out of our taxpayers.
And that's why I joked last week. I was like, if I homeschool my kids, can I get $10,000 a year? Can I get $11,000 a year with our new model that we're working with tonight? Will the state kick me out a check to help me buy books and online courses and all the different stuff? I mean, I'm going to use a lot of YouTube.
I bet you there's some kind of program that is state funded that does for, at least like curriculum help for homeschooling.
I'd be curious because I think that opens the conversation, because I think there's again, if the model brings in competition that, again, forces Catholic from getting too expensive, brings other schools in, that the incentive is now we have to sell our seats. We have to sell seats in our classroom. Whether I'm Knox County Schools or I'm Catholic or I'm some new school that comes in, what am I selling as a school? I mean, if as a parent and you had a choice to send your kids to any of a handful of schools, what would be your decision? What would be the things that would make a difference to you making that decision? Monetarily is one of those issues, obviously, but if we have more choices and that narrows the band of cost, where it's like, I could send them to school A and pay nothing, or I could pay $1,500 a year on top of my voucher or whatever to send them to school B. What differences in A and B am I looking for? I'm looking for a school that I think is going to do better, maybe specifically whether it's a wrestling thing, to go back to last week's conversation, or whether it's astrophysics or whatever it is that my student seems to have, and this school has a better version of that. Is it worth it to me to pay a little bit extra to get more of a program that's good for them because of some individual preference of theirs? Or they have a specific disability, and this school does better with students with this specific disability. They have a focus on that. They specialize in taking care of that thing.
There's a school that doesn't allow gum chewing.
Possibly. I mean, again, going back to me and you played restaurant games for a long time. Customer comes in and says, I'd like to spend money here except for X. Whatever X is. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's the music's too loud in dinner time. Like, yeah, cool, man. You got a bar kind of thing going, but at 6:30 at night when I'm trying to have dinner, it's a little too loud. I'd love to come in and have dinner with you guys, but it's a little too loud. Then you, as the business, make the decision: is that customer worth me turning the music down? Is that customer worth me banning chewing gum in the classroom? Because, well, that's kind of normal for a lot of classrooms. So yeah, we'll make that a rule if that's going to get us a few new students. Why not?
Not quite apples to apples, but I get where you're going.
I mean, no, it's a bar and a school. It's obviously not apples to apples.
Okay. It is apples to apples,
but I think it is too, because it's again, it's.
I don't see it as that. You're talking about it exactly like you just pointed out. You're talking about a public school versus a private business.
No, because what we're really talking about is incentives. That's one of the things that the more we do shows and the more I talk to different people, the more I come down to the bottom line is, how do we incentivize the outcomes we want? As parents, how do we incentivize the outcomes we want for our kids in schools? And sadly, or perfectly, I don't know, however you feel about it, monetary is a big one for a lot of people. It's a big incentive for people to do better. And we can call that capitalism and sales and all that kind of bullshit ever. But at the end of the day, if I'm running a school for profit, because for profit's so fucking evil, but if I'm running the school for profit, I don't make profit if I don't have students. I don't have students if I don't offer something to those students / parents to get them to come spend their money with me.
Is Knox County Schools a for-profit entity?
No, but if they operated more like one, they might not suck as bad. If they actually gave a shit, they might not suck as bad, sure.
So what? I also heard you talk about, teacher salaries, teacher increase, they should make more money, all that kind of stuff. What is the average salary in Knox County? Do you know? $46,000 a year.
Surrounding counties are 60. I just figured 2 so you don't have to get a second one.
Well, no. Let's not talk about surrounding counties. Let's just talk about Knox County.
Okay, $46,000 in Knox County.
So, Knox County schools, they make $46,000 a year. What is the average college degree make? Do you have any idea on that?
Probably less than that, but I don't know.
Probably less than that. $46,000 a year. And so, my...
I mean, that's a hard question to ask. Let's see what they'll... average.
What's the median? Not mean, median.
ZipRecruiter says as high as 112, as low as 24.9. The majority of salaries with the bachelor's degree job categories range between 35 and 69. So, right there.
Right there. So, This is bad because my brother was a teacher. Well, my sister-in-law was a teacher.
Hold on, before you go,
I got a lot of friends that are teachers.
Right,
and all that kind of stuff.
Before you say the bad thing, the majority of teachers have more than a 4-year degree.
Okay.
Most of them have a master's because I think that might be required.
You would absolutely be wrong.
That it's required?
That most teachers? I mean, you can teach in Knox County schools without even having a degree.
Yeah, I think they just passed that law with the teacher shortages.
No, it's been a while.
No, they're trying to do a law now to where I guess
you have to have a teaching certificate. You don't actually have to have a degree.
I mean, the same set of numbers. A master's degree has the same 63 to 45, so it's actually almost identical.
So
average salary.
I think they've got a bill pending. That's basically if you have somebody that's a retired engineer that can go in and teach mathematics. Yeah, you don't have to have a teaching degree or teaching experience.
That is correct, but that's not like there's a whole other program where you can just go get a teaching certificate. I mean, a substitute, you just have to have a high school diploma or a GED to be a substitute. But to actually work, you have to have a teaching certificate, not necessarily a degree.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about, I think, and I could be talking about
they're working on it. They're working on it now.
You have a degree, you don't have to have that teaching certificate kind of thing. But this is my point. We complain about teachers don't get paid enough. $47,000 a year for 12 weeks vacation paid.
I mean, sort of, yeah.
They work 3/4 of the year. Honestly.
I mean, I follow what you're saying.
So you're like, oh, we should get paid more. Like, what other job can you have? Really? What other job in the world can you have other than being a CEO or a tycoon or whatever, owning a business? What other hourly job or salary job do you get 12 weeks vacation and not have been there for 30, 40 years?
Right.
Well, that summer thing is, which I'm assuming schools that go year-round do just essentially spread that out.
Right. It's still 12 weeks off a year because there's only no state has more than like 180 or 190 days of education.
The teachers, once they go home, when do you think they're checking the homework?
That's fair, but the other side too is that
bullshit. That's
not bullshit.
No, it is absolutely bullshit because
you think at 3:30 they clock out, they go home.
Do you think
done?
When I worked at a full-time job, 40 hours a week, working for the food service business, that when I clocked out, I didn't have to go home and do shit for making this spreadsheet for this customer or this person.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of fucking people that clock out from work and do shit at home. So don't tell me that.
That's the nature of sales. That's the nature of sales. Yes, I agree.
Let's go.
It is. That's the nature of teachers.
Let's go apples to apples.
I didn't have 12 weeks off a year.
What did you make when you were doing that, working 90 hours a week and
80,000? Yeah,
right. That's only. I mean, I don't know.
But I didn't have 12 weeks off.
I'm just saying.
So break down my salary of how many weeks I was. So
you got your phone.
10 weeks off. you know,
you do the math.
No, what I'm saying is, if you take, so we'll take 10 weeks off. So they work an extra 10 weeks. It's probably that 40 whatever $1,000 a year is probably 60 or
4,000 a week. So that'd be around 40 weeks for 1,000 a week. So you'd add 10,000. So it'd be 60.
It's right there.
I mean, I get it.
So that's the thing. It's like, oh, we have to go home and do this kind of stuff. We have lesson plans. Fucking bullshit.
You could find all sorts of careers that work not as hard or more hard and still get paid more or less. You can find examples to support either side of that argument.
Again, because I'm going to roll it down, and my favorite word is incentives.
I'm going to go down to importance. I'm sorry.
And so,
teachers are very important. They are fucking teaching our children how to be fucking adults for the rest of their lives.
And sucking it. Oh, I did get an email from a listener.
Yeah,
correcting me on the...
Everyone in the U.S. is failing because of the teachers.
Correcting me on there. There is a course in 9th grade in Tennessee schools that does teach check writing and those kind of things as well.
I saw blurbs of someone that was talking to you about that.
Yeah, those are the people that get paid more because they're not doing their fucking job, right?
What?
Like you're saying, I was corrected. There are people... There's a course in 9th grade that teaches them
a half credit course
how to do that. Well, you know what? For the people that I've met that have graduated, don't know how to fucking write checks. So that person that was working all those extra hours at home writing these lesson plans should be fucking fired because they're not doing their job. Yes, they deserve more money.
And to give Sam to give Sam a little bit of whatever is important.
Give Sam a little bit of whatever.
No, to give me a little back up.
Just whatever.
Whatever.
I'll throw you something at you.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I agree that I think that the education process is important for the longevity of our nation. It's good for us as a community, whether we have kids or not. Blah 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 blah. And why I use
I feel a butt coming in there.
Why I use the word incentives is where the pay conversation comes in is to incentivize the best teachers who actually can get through the idea of how to write a check and get it to actually stick in brains and stay. We need to incentivize the best people that are capable of doing that. And again, as much as we like to hear people bitch about how much money's evil and what like that, obviously it is a huge motivator. And if we agree that teachers are important, then we need to incentivize better teachers to stick around. And the easiest way to do that is with more money.
I agree.
And 12 weeks off.
So no, I agree that teachers should get paid more. But this bullshit of I only make this amount of money. Yeah, but you have fucking 12 weeks off.
I mean, what's the average income in the state or in Knox County?
What I'm saying is, okay, so you make $45,000 a year, which is equivalent to working a full-time job, would be $60,000 a year. Say, I only make $60,000 a year, I should make $80,000 a year. Well, that's fucked up.
Of 2019... Knox County's average individual income was $29,600.
Yeah, so teachers make more. But what I'm saying is, I don't disagree that teachers should make more, but I just have an issue when they're like, we only make this amount of money, but you only work 3/4 out of the year.
But I think again, I'm going to push back a little bit. I think one of the big ones, and I think this comes from Miss Oakley when she was in here, is that the teaching part's not that big a deal. It's all the admin part that's the problem. How much time they spend at home not creating lessons plans, not working on the next chapter of whatever. It's literally filling out the paperwork that the county and the state require them to do on each student every day or every week or whatever it is. All the paperwork that's part of their job too is one of the bigger complaints that I could say. Like her joke on it was, I teach for free. You pay me to do the paperwork.
So the question is, what's the pay difference between elementary, middle school, and high school?
I don't know.
Is there a thing? Because I think
it's just based on experience.
Well, So my,
where like you pretty much like started at a semi-average base salary, and then you go up from there if you put in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
My brother teached high school. They're retired, but now they're actually going to start teaching again
on the boat.
Yeah, they absolutely. They have their teaching. They just got approved in South Carolina because their fucking boat broke down and they had to spend a shit ton of money on their retirement of their retirement money on that. So my brother was high school. He taught physics, geology, chemistry, biology, super high end. And if you talk to him and how much stuff he had to do after school and prep and all that kind of stuff versus his wife that taught second grade, she didn't have all this extra stuff she had to do after work. So that the curiosity is there a pay difference between elementary and high school? Is the elementary like around the 35 and the high school is around 60, so we get that medium of 45 or something like that? I don't know. And if it's not, that's how it should be. If you're teaching kindergarten, you're not going home every night going, I need a lesson plan.
Right, but I would assume that the younger grades have more paperwork because they have more
paperwork for what?
Just more like that. I mean, because they're
Johnny wiped his butt today.
I mean, yes, probably some of that, but I would think that there's probably a lot more attention put on identifying and recognizing particular disorders or ailments or whatever in the younger grades, because
so our teachers are doctors now. I gotcha. Okay.
I mean, there is a lot of that in there where they have to. I mean, again, I think this was from Oakley because I was joking with somebody about how I think it's crazy that a cosmetologist, to get her license from the state of Tennessee, is required to know how to identify lice, but by law cannot tell a customer that they have lice.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, as a teacher, it might have been, I might be mixing people up, but as a teacher, I not only am required to know how to identify lice, but I'm required to take a certain amount of classes or something like that on how to intervene and instruct the parents and the student on how to deal with it. Like that the teacher is obligated to, where the cosmetologist, who all they do is heads,
so
is obligated to not.
Would you say a kindergarten teacher and a senior physics teacher have the same amount of workload?
I mean, I have no idea.
Yes, you do.
Why do I have any idea?
So you think a kindergarten teacher does so much work after school versus a physics high school, a senior level?
I mean, I would think the kindergarten teacher would have more if I was going to guess one way or the other.
You're full of shit.
No, I'm not full of shit, because I would think that as a physics professor or a physics teacher and at a senior in high school, the kids that are in this room, they want to be in this room.
Yeah, and I
don't have to talk them into doing their readings. I don't have to set this up in some way to make it engaging for them.
I'm talking.
I just throw them the information, give them the test
after school.
That's what I'm saying. I would say that a very specific specialist teacher in a high school level has less out of school work than a kindergarten teacher does.
I think we kind of depend on the subject, because I was thinking, like an English teacher, when we were in high school, we've got block scheduling, so you've got 4 periods, so that teacher probably has at least 3, if not 4 periods that they're teaching of a classroom of at least 25 kids, so they've got 100 essentially of all junior English classes that you're taking.
Well, that's a fair point. I think about that.
Instead of 20,
I think
in elementary schools, you've got that one group of kids.
And I think kindergarten by law is only like 12 or 15 kids max per kindergarten.
And so when you go home and you have to grade kids' homework in kindergarten versus grade physics.
Like I said, my assumption would be that in a physics whatever setting,
so his shit is just,
here's your shit.
Here's your shit.
That's a lot of smiley face stickers to be putting on pictures.
There is a lot.
You got to peel the sticker.
You got to peel the sticker. You don't actually have to.
Got to make sure you don't give them the same sticker you gave them last time.
You don't actually have to read or figure out if this person actually did the work they did.
Again, I would think that the kindergarten teacher has to be more aware of non-school things that are within the kindergarten job that they do document the shit out of. They have to document the shit out of it.
You are fucking crazy.
All right, well, we'll have to ask some people.
You're crazy that thinks that a kindergarten teacher works in class. She might have to deal with more stuff. Fucking kid just peed the bed, or a kid just pulled the hair of Mary. In class, absolutely, a kindergarten teacher works harder. Outside the class, absolutely not.
All right, I'll agree to disagree on that one, buddy. I don't know.
No, you're.
I'll agree that I don't fucking know, and I'm just talking.
And you're fucking wrong.
I might be.
Come on. All our 7 listeners, do we have any teachers that are listening that could comment on this?
I'm sure we do.
I just know my brother and my sister, and not my sister, my sister-in-law, my brother would tell you he had a lot more work after class than she did.
Okay. I believe you. It's also Colorado, but...
Oh, no, it's Wyoming.
Wyoming.
Yeah, bitch.
Snap.
I don't remember. Where did we start on teacher? Oh, we're talking about teacher salaries. I don't know. Again, I think the salary is a valid conversation to have with the amount of things that we lay on teachers that they need to do. I will still stick to that one.
No, but the whole point is I don't disagree that teachers should have raises, but I think it needs to be a more honest conversation. Like, you make good money for what you have.
Right. The conversation ought to be, we need to pay teachers more so we get better teachers.
Again, like Seth was saying.
No. What I'm saying is,
a lot of those teachers have master's degrees, so they're paying off student loans just like everybody else.
But what I'm saying is, like, when you put out a statement, we only make this, well, that's because you only work 3/4 of a year.
Right, and you're $15,000 over average for the rest of the county.
So, like, that's the point. When you say, we only make this, we should get paid more, and the average person is like, a teacher only makes that? Like, yeah, they should get paid more. Well, I agree they should get paid more, but let's be realistic on 3/4 of the year. Just take their salary and times it by a full year. So, whatever it is, $47,000... divided by 3 times 4.
Right, and there's argument to be made that they can go do Dolly for the summer and supplement that salary.
Well,
I think I've heard teachers say that before, that they have that option of getting paid for the months they're within, but most prefer to just get that steady paycheck per month.
No. I asked my brother and his wife would do summer school, and their summer school would pay them around $20,000 more for 6 weeks of work. So they always did a summer school, which is 6 weeks, so their summer was only 6 weeks or whatever however it came out, but they always stayed extra because how much more they got paid to do summer school. And so the other thing is, when it comes to tenure, if you do summer school counts as
an extra semester,
an extra year.
Oh shit.
So it knocks off a year. So well, I might be talking on my ass in Tennessee. I'll just talk about what I know about Wyoming.
Right, but they lived in Colorado and commuted to Wyoming because Wyoming did better than Colorado did.
Wyoming paid more, so that's why they commuted. But
so they weren't making enough?
Yeah.
If they stayed in Colorado.
No, they made $60-some thousand a year.
Just kidding.
But how the retirement went was your age plus how many years you taught. And if that equaled 80, that was full retirement. So if you started teaching when you were
25,
60, and taught till you were 70, 10 years, that was full retirement. So it was how old you are plus how many years you taught.
So I could start teaching at 75, teach for 3 years, and get full retirement.
2.5 years, yes.
Yeah.
So that was a calculation, but for every year you did summer school, it knocked off 1 year. So that 80 went to 79.
Right.
Blah blah blah. That's kind of how it worked out. I don't know how Tennessee is, so I can't really speak from. I just speak from my brother, sister-in-law, and other sister-in-law that are teachers.
Right. I mean, again, I think there's. I think the question of value is a conversation to be had. Is it valuable to us as a citizenry to pay them more? Do we want better? And again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Do we actually want better results from the school systems?
But after all this, I agree they should get paid more. I don't disagree they should get paid more.
See, I don't know.
That may sound funny, but I just think that
it's why,
the discussion of
let's discuss why you get paid, why you should get paid more, and why you should get paid more is because you're important. Sam, your word important, and that we want to incentivize how important you are by paying you more.
No, I think they should get paid more, but I want a realistic conversation about what you actually make for what you do.
Right. Because I think one of the things, too, is that I know, at least for the security guys, because I was talking to him about it, is the bank does the stuff for them. The school pays you for while you're working, like during the school year, but the bank has an algorithm or whatever that'll pull a little bit out of each paycheck and set it aside and then average it out for your summer checks.
Really?
So it's not, the school system doesn't do that, but I think it's like the Knox County School Credit Union or whatever. They do that for you. And so like if you're, again, 40,000 or whatever it is, you get 600 a paycheck, whatever it is, a week. And they'll only pay you $450 will show up in your account, and that other 150 will be set aside. And then over the summer when you're not working, it's like the average KUB bill thing that they used to do. They just average it out. And so it pays you all year instead of just while you're working. But Knox County Schools only pays while you're working. Just a little unimportant tidbit, but it's a tidbit.
Yeah, people I've talked to with teachers, they had the option to take just the months they were working or the full year, like
spread it out over the year.
Spread it out of the year.
And again, I mean, I'm assuming the banks that deal with the schools have that preset in conversation when you get hired.
See, that's right.
It's either new hire packet. And
do you want this or this?
Right. But again, I don't know. I mean, I think the question at play here is, what do we want out of our schools? What do we want as the adults in the room? Obviously we don't want to pay much for it because it's expensive. But what do we want? And then what are the reasonable ways to get what we want out of it? I mean, again, as we joke about the stupid check being a bad like just a specific example that we like to rail on, but kids not being able to write a check when they get out of high school that's what are the skills that we want? Like I asked this question for a lot of our school board races that I'm talking to. It's like, what is a Tennessee Knox County graduate? What do we want that person to look like? Obviously, they look like whatever they were born like grown up, but like, what are the things? What are the skills that we want them to have? What is the knowledge that we want them to be built in with? And then what do we want them to be able to do easily from there? Whether that's the college path or the technical path or whatever. Because I pitched, I guess it was Edwards. I think it was, when I was like, well, let's just knock off the junior senior year. Yeah.
No, like I was with you on that when you talked about just graduated at 16. So that was the thing is it happens over in Europe a lot where they say they graduate high school at 16 and then they have a 2-year course. They call they call it college, and then they go to university. So when you graduate high school at 16, you go to college, and it's a 2-year program for college for what route kind of you want to go. And then after that, they go to university. They talk about university,
right? Or they'll get into a apprenticeship, or right again. Because I think that's one of the questions I think that is a fair question to talk about. It's like, when do we want to start pushing? Maybe not pushing. Yeah. When do we want to start pushing students to start making decisions about the direction they want to go? Obviously, some students make that decision later than others. I graduated college and I still don't know what the fuck I wanted to do with my life. But
why are you a senior in high school taking a math class and you're going to be a brick mason?
Right. And
why the fuck are you still taking
math? Depending on the math, geometry might be important. If you're
okay. Yes. Why are you taking an English class your senior year if you're going to be a brick mason?
Right, and again, I think I think the question to ask is, when do we feel like is the right time to start having the conversation about which direction we want our students to, when do we want our students to start picking their directions? When do we want them to start thinking about, well, what do I want to do with my life and what direction do I want to go in? Because I think 18 is a little too late.
No, I agree.
And I think, and again, in the grand scheme, if you really want to break down the costs and all the kind of crazy shit you want to do, you knock off junior, senior year of high school, you move 5th grade into middle school. So it's K through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10. Well, actually, you probably do 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10, and then 11, 12 doesn't exist anymore. That frees up so much space in the schools.
Why don't you go 1 through 8?
Well, because it's trying to work with the schools we have.
Okay, I got you.
So we take 1 grade out of elementary school that would get all of the students out of the trailers at my school at least. But we leave the trailers there because they'll grow back into it, whatever. But
it just goes,
but I don't know. That's just an aside, kind of joking about it. But again, the idea being that we start having a real conversation about what do you want to do with your life, whether it's tech schools, whether it's X, Y, or Z. But get them out of the school system as soon as we can, and not saying that we wouldn't have state and county subsidized at some level specialty schools, but at least get them out of the basics. Is Knox County schools or state schools, what is their job? Is their job to get you functional on the basics so that you can start making decisions for your life? If that's the goal, then sure, let's attack that conversation.
I mean, and honestly, like, my kids are older than your kids, but like by now you've kind of learned your kids, like, do you think your kid is going to be a doctor or a lawyer? Do you think your kid has the aptitude to do that kind of stuff? Like, I have those judgments on my kids, which I have, with me and my wife, we have 3 that have graduated, and all 3 of them are not really doing anything professionally.
Well, but I think too,
and then the next one down, it's like, yeah, I see her going to college. The next one down, I don't see her going to college. The next boy, like, I don't know about him yet, but like, I think school in how it's set up now is, you're going to go to school, and then you go to college, and then you're going to get a job. And that's not everyone's path.
Right.
And I think school is set on making people think that's the path.
Well, I mean, and if you want, if you want to go deep and down the rabbit hole in the history of U.S. schools, it's the Austrian education model, which all it was trying to do was build factory workers. How many factories do you still have in the States? How many people graduate from high school and go work in a factory anymore? But that's what the school system is built around. The idea is that you were supposed to be smart enough to know how to read the instruction manual, but not smart enough to question how the machine works and or question management. That is the model that our schools are built on.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's been that way since like the 40s. Back when it actually kind of made sense. Back in the 40s, it made sense. Plenty of people came out and went and worked factory jobs and lived their whole life working a factory job. Made a pretty good middle-class life out of it.
Happy as can be.
Right, made a pretty good middle-class life out of it. That's not the world we live in anymore, but we still have this 100-year-old school model that's not keeping up with the world that we live in. Now, hopefully, going back to the beginning of the show and this whole Russia-Ukraine mess and seeing what China does and Taiwan and the Korea things going on and all that kind of shit, hopefully that wakes us up to, hey, we need to start building our own shit again. And maybe factory jobs will come back to the United States, and maybe you can graduate from high school just smart enough to read the manual to go work in the factory, and we'll be okay.
But now we're teaching them, just be smart enough to be a YouTuber.
I mean, in my deep dive into the popularness of YouTubes, there's not a lot of smart there.
No,
I take that back. I take that back. I credit my wife more than me, I guess, because I don't know where they get it from. But some of their favorites are some of the handful of smart ones.
Yeah, but like if you asked your son, your oldest son, what do you want to be when he grows up, what do you think the response is going to be?
He wants to be a YouTuber.
Exactly. And so the craziness is, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a wrestler, or I want to be a football player. I want to be these things that are, when you're young, like a super... This is a super, I can do it. And then there's some point as you're growing up, you're realizing, I'm not going to be a professional football player.
Right.
And so then you realize that. But with, I want to be a YouTuber, absolutely. anybody. It's not. You don't have to have a physical ability. You don't have to. Like, I've seen smart people, stupid people, like all sorts of people. Like any. When you look at the people on the Green Bay Packers, your love of your life.
Okay.
Like, you look at those people, they all have something in common. They're superb athletes, right?
I mean, they're top 32 in the world of whatever specific job they have in that sport, yes.
Exactly. So they're great athletes. You look at YouTubers, anybody could do it. And that's like it's kind of
but I think realistically, in time, that's not true anymore. In the beginning, some of the biggest, oldest, earliest accounts, sure, it was, and even today, it's still some dumb luck and whatever that gets you going.
No, but
it's formulaic. There's formula to it, and people will start figuring it out, and the dumb luck will start to trim.
Yeah, but like if you want to be a YouTuber, you can look at somebody that is very similar to you. That you're like, that guy did it. I can do it.
Oh, Jacob that used to work at the liquor store?
I don't know.
Anyway, Jacob that used to work at the liquor store, he does a radio show and a podcast. Basically, the entirety of it is UT Sports, more or less.
Okay.
And he's like 20-something thousand downloads an episode. And how many UT Sports podcast radio shows are going on in Knoxville right now?
No idea.
Probably a dozen at least, and that's how much audience there is for that. You know, the dumb luck of what we did is we picked the wrong path. We should be talking about sports. We'd have way more listeners.
No, but what I'm saying
that's the formulaic part that comes to bear over time. People figure it out.
Exactly, and if you look at Jacob that worked at the liquor store, can you look at him and what he does and see a big difference in you? Like, you can look at a professional athlete and go, that guy is faster, stronger, whatever.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? And now our kids' goals are, I want to be a YouTuber. And that's like, you can't be like, okay, you're not as strong as him. You don't run a 440 and whatever. You can't do all these things.
Okay, so
and now you cannot define that as saying you can't do that.
Let me get my armchair psychologist out here.
So you don't have enough followers to be important enough in that.
Exactly. So that's the only thing you can do.
So what was it when you wanted to be? Because if I don't know this for a fact, I'm just guessing that the history of it is that you wanted to be a football player, and then you got into wrestling, and then you realized there was really nothing professional about in a wrestling future. And so were you done with football when you got into wrestling?
Yeah. So I did judo, and most of the people that were older in judo, because I just started judo when I was like 6, and the high school age kids, middle school age kids, during wrestling season, they'd left. And you didn't see them because they wrestled, and then when wrestling season was over, they came back and did judo. And so that was kind of progression from our judo club of, hey, when you get older, you do wrestling. So that's why I joined wrestling. And I started doing wrestling, and then, freshman year, being like, I want to play football. And then I played football, and then I realized I was a better wrestler than a football player. So stopped playing football and just concentrated on wrestling and did wrestling. And so the idea for me was, I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to get a scholarship in wrestling
to Iowa,
exactly. And then I'm gonna go to college and wrestle and maybe be in the Olympics and stuff. And then that was as far as I got. Like, I would go to college, and college I'd figure out what I was going to do after wrestling.
Right. But I'm gonna say, like, I guess I'm assuming we could pick apart some parallels to the generation of kids right now who are going to be YouTube stars. They're going to have the thing that kicks them off to the idea of that there is going to be a ceiling somewhere that they're going to recognize on their own. That there's part of that can be the parenting and being like, hey man, like seriously, like, what are you bringing special to the table that people are going to watch? How are we going to get you the audience? Blah blah blah. Like there's part of that. But there was a realization that you had as an individual in the process where you said, the being a lifetime wrestler is not an option, and you realize that on your own somewhere in the process. I don't see a reason why our kids can't figure that out too at some point. I don't know what it is, and I get what you're saying, that there is a significant visual perceptive difference in, oh, that guy's a world-class wrestler, that guy's a world-class YouTuber. I could definitely fit that mold. I'm sure as shit not fitting that world-class wrestler mold. I get that part, visually speaking, but
like you watch, these like you said, world-class YouTubers that are 8 years old,
right?
So is that tells our kids that, like, oh, you could be a YouTuber, which I don't disagree. They can be a YouTuber, but it is literally a lottery pick.
It is, but something will snap a reality into the conversation. I think, like it has to be. There's got to be a. I'm sure we could, if we dug deep enough, we could find a story of like an aspiring YouTube star who realized he wasn't going to make it and shifted his life into doing whatever else he was doing, or used the experience and knowledge gained from trying to be a YouTube star and shifted into the new thing, whatever the new thing was for them. I guess my point is that it's the get off my lawn moment. I guess it's that, every generation has that I don't understand what they're doing, younger than me thing. I don't get it. But just like our parents didn't understand the period of our lives and why we were into X, Y, or Z, and that morphed into whatever it is, and we are who we are now, this is the same thing for our kids. I'm not saying we shouldn't be careful and watch out for it and try to do our best I can for our kids. I'm just saying, like, I feel like that is a very similar situation to the same idea of, like, I was going to be a baseball player when I was my kid's age. Like, I was baseball was the only thing that mattered in the world and existed, and blah, blah, blah. That was where my brain was. And then somewhere in my growth process, I'm like, I'm probably not going to be a baseball player.
Why did you think you weren't going to be a baseball player?
Well, one, baseball broke my heart with the strike lockout.
You kept on striking out.
Right. No, I didn't keep striking out, but the strike and lockout, all that kind of shit that went down in the late 80s, early 90s, which we're doing again now, but that whole thing, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the finances and the whole conversation at the time. It's just like, why are we playing baseball? Why is there no baseball on TV? Where are my heroes? And then, and I never got back into baseball after that. I was like, I'm done with baseball. I think I realized prior to that I didn't have the drive and energy and effort to put in that I would need to put in to be a pro, but I still love playing.
But where are these kids that I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer? I remember, like, as a kid going like, oh, I should be a doctor and make $50,000 a year. I remember thinking that, like, oh, you make so much money if you made $50,000 a year as a doctor.
I mean, I think there's a real conversation to be had on salary conversation, like how much we need to make to live kind of thing. I think there's a real conversation to be had about how high our what's the word? What do they call it when you get the alimony checks? Why do you pay an alimony check? Because because
you got divorced.
She was accustomed to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'm not meaning it's in the divorce conversation, but how accustomed we as Americans have gotten to the lifestyle we have, that the things that we say we need to live. And because again, that's a basis. A lot of these arguments for why people should get paid more, whether it's teachers or why we should raise minimum wage to $15 or $20 an hour is the new number. If you hadn't heard that yet,
is it?
Yeah,
I have not heard
20,
that.
It's 15. 15's a step in the right direction, but it's not even close. At least 20 before we're really getting serious about anything. But is this standard of living? That's the word I was searching for there a second ago. This standard of living that we've come to call normal is ridiculously high. Like, it really is, comparatively. It's one of those, get real old school and ask your mom or dad about when they were 20 and the things that they had and were normal for them. Like, I don't know, did your household when you were a teenager have more cars than adults?
No.
When you started driving, was there a car for you to drive, or was it one of your parents' cars?
No. It was my parents' car, and then maybe when I was 17, I bought a car.
Right, but you bought the car.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, now, I've heard stories of, and there's plenty of them in the other places, but even locally. I mean, I've seen kids fucking kids and Range Rovers and shit like that driving around.
Oh, for sure.
You know, go to some of these high school parking lots and see what these kids are driving to high school. It's fucking crazy.
I agree.
And so, like, but I think, you know, going into the conversation about
driving nicer cars than the teachers.
Yeah. I take that back. Like, our kindergarten teacher had a G-Wagon, so
okay.
Apparently she's getting paid okay.
Exactly.
But, you know,
but you don't know how much work she had to do with, as Sam would say, pulling off the star stickers and putting them on the piece of paper.
That's right.
I don't know what her spouse does either. So
how many paper cuts she got?
She got a ton.
You know,
but she had sticky stuff on her fingers. It was awful.
I find that one of those interesting things that we don't talk about when we talk about the cost of living and we talk about all these things and how much people should be making and how much more expensive it is to live. But like, what is included in the list of things that we have to live in?
I mean, there's definitely a level of that keeping up with the Joneses, quote unquote.
I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, for sure. But there's also a difference in...
you've done care cuts, right?
Yeah, we've done care cuts.
You've been down there and seen those guys, seen the homeless of Knoxville and the cell phone collections?
Oh, yeah, they all have cell phones.
I mean, and they're not all, like, you know, iPhone 12s or anything, but, I mean, they're good, high, solid phones.
Yeah, phones. But, like, also, when you talk about, like, generations from our parents that how grew up, like, our parents did not... Jesus, you're going through them, aren't you? He didn't even want to ask for one. He's like, fuck it, I'm just going to get up. Like, our parents didn't, like, travel. You know what I mean? It was like, summer vacation, we're going to Pigeon Forge. I'm just saying because I didn't grow up here.
Right.
But, like, parents... You did not travel a lot. Like you had
you might go up to Minneapolis.
You go like a summer vacation and maybe a fall vacation, spring break vacation or whatever. But like family didn't do shit. It was work, you know, sleep, feed your family, that kind of stuff. And then twice a year you did something fun. It was not like today where people travel a lot more, do a lot more things, travel the world, that kind of thing. It's a whole different time.
I agree.
Too.
Again, I think like the point being is that our standard of living has significantly risen over the generations. It is an undeniable fact. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that our standard has risen. I don't think it's a bad thing that normal people expect to be able to go at least across the country, if not out of the country, every couple of years or so. Maybe not every year, but taking a trip to Italy or something like that with teenage kids is like not crazy. That was crazy when I was a kid.
I agree.
We left the country once, and that was only because my parents' friends had a timeshare. And
you think it's not crazy now?
I think it's less crazy now. I think it's...
How many people do you think have the money to do that?
I think more.
I mean, average. You think it's more?
More than a decade ago, or than 30 years ago, than when we were kids.
You really think so?
No, I did. I mean, I'm an anomaly because, you know, my mom's not from the United States and I have family in Amsterdam. So we traveled to Amsterdam to visit my family, but like it was plane tickets because we lived with... Right. We stayed with family while we were there.
And hell, I say all that.
It's a little different from my point of view, but I didn't know any of my friends or anything that left the country to go do stuff. And if I asked my kids like how many of their friends went to do stuff, I would think that there's more people that go to Mexico or go to Europe or go places with their kids than when I was growing up.
I mean, that would be my assumption too. I hear what you're saying, Sam. I could be wrong. There could be an equal number, and maybe I've shifted through the a sub layer of the classes to see it more often now than I did. But I mean, again, I don't know, same deal. Like again, like joking about parking lot stuff. Like some of the cars I see dropping kids off at my school, they live in my neighborhood, or at least in neighborhoods around my neighborhood.
I mean, when we were in high school, there was a lot of people that had really nice, like brand new cars that their parents had bought them.
I agree, but I don't think I don't know. Maybe it's a perception issue, but I don't see.
It wasn't a lot, but I mean, there was wealth in our high school
for sure.
See, I don't know. Me growing up in my high school, I can't remember anybody that had a Mercedes, or I don't even think Lexus was around back then. So, but nobody had like a super nice car. Everybody had just like junkers and beaters and pickup trucks and stuff like that. Like, I don't remember anybody ever having like, oh my God, he's driving the G-Wagon.
Right. It was by no means a lot, but I mean, I'd say maybe one out of 40 kids in our high school probably had brand new cars, if not like a year or two older.
I don't know anybody. I'm trying to think.
That's what I always thought was like funny. We were in high school, like everyone talked about our school, like our rival Farragut was like, oh, the rich school, and I'm like, the fuck are you talking about? And we had plenty of like wealthy kids in our school that
we did,
yeah. But
what's interesting that
Farragut was like, oh, the wealthy school.
If you live in the township of Farragut, you pay more taxes, but less of it goes to Knox County schools.
What?
Yeah, Knox County schools kicks in less, or the township of Farragut kicks in less in the way the tax structure works that goes back to schools than the rest of the county.
And they get to pick their own color of the street sign. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
And they get to pick how many signs you have.
And how tall your
signs are and all sorts of shit.
Yeah, we got all crazy stuff.
But I don't know. That is a level, and there's a handful of those on the election coming up that I'm not even pretending to try to start to talk about. Like we started with that earlier, but I'm on. Let's see here. What's today? I got Jimmy JJ on Monday.
JJ Jones on Monday.
Yeah, I got the former sheriff. Which I still laugh about it every time I see one of his signs because it's
the reelect.
The reelect. They both both sheriffs running have reelect. Okay, actually, that reminds me of a better thing to talk about. I think that's important to talk about. You're in District 7.
Okay.
You go to the primary and pull your Republican primary.
Okay.
Because you get to choose when you go in there. If you are a Democrat in Knox County and you want to pull a primary for whatever district you're in. As a Democrat, you do not get to vote for sheriff.
Oh, because they're both Republicans.
Because they're both Republicans. And so whoever wins the primary is going to be your sheriff. Now, if you're a Democrat in Knox County, they're both the shitty options. It doesn't really matter, I guess. I mean, it's literally a lesser two evils if you want to pick up that ballot, because you're allowed to pick up the ballot. But, if you're...
Do you think there's going to be any Democrats that are picking up a Republican ballot?
Every Democrat that lives in District 7 that has any wit about them, that understands anything that's going on, will be picking up a Republican ballot. Because District 7 has only Republicans for county commission, only Republicans for sheriff, and only one Republican running for school board. So of all the contested races and anything that you can get in on, you'll lose I don't think you're going to lose any Democratic primaries except for the mayor if you pick up a Republican primary in District 7. But if you pick up a Democrat primary in District 7, you don't have a primary except for the mayor's race. If you pick up a
Democratic, well, I guess if you're a Democrat and you pick up a Republican primary, it doesn't matter because when you pick up the final, it's the same.
Say that again.
It's not like if you pick up. When it comes to the final election,
right? The general in August, yeah.
The general, there's no Republican or Democrat. So
I mean, there is a Republican Democrat, but
no. What I'm saying, it does not hurt you. Being
right for you specifically, unless you are anywhere in the county and really care about whomever is trying to beat Jacobs, unless you really care about the mayor's race, because as of right now, the only contested primary on the Democrat side of the ballot, I believe, is the mayor's race. I think other than that... Oh, I'm sorry, in District 1 School Board. District 1 School Board has 2 Democrats and 2 independents. So, so the mayor's race and District 1 is the only one that has a contested Democratic primary. So... everything else that's on the possible primary ballot is going to be Republican stuff. And so if you want any real voice in a lot of stuff, you need to pick up the Republican primary is the point. Which, again, thankfully Tennessee has open primaries. The GOP, and I don't think the Democrats would say no if it happened either. I don't think the Democrats push back against closing primaries. Most other states, you have to declare with your voter registration which party you affiliate with. So people's like me, I would put an independent on it. I wouldn't get to do any primaries. So if we were in North Carolina, I would not be allowed to vote for sheriff because we don't have anybody running other than Republicans.
Until the general.
But it'll only be whoever wins the primary. And so I can
you still get a vote. What if nobody votes in the general for the person?
I mean, they already won. It doesn't matter. They need one vote. If they don't vote for themselves, they lose. Like, I mean, literally, that's the way this thing works. It kind of bothers me. Like, it kind of find it to be gross. Like, I'm okay with like party primary kind of stuff, but it's like, hey, let's say if a race only has 2 candidates, regardless of party, they both go to the general. How about that? We have 2 guys running for sheriff. They're both Republicans. They both go to the general because there's nobody else. I believe that if I cared about who was running for the Democratic office, for the Democratic nomination for mayor, and that I was a Democrat and I really care and I want to vote for my pick for I want to be the Democrat to run against Jacobs, I don't believe that should make it so that I am ineligible to vote for sheriff. Because, if it's a fully uncontested race, fine. Sherry Witt, she gets a walk. Nobody's running against her. County clerk, because Max didn't fill out his paperwork in time.
Yeah, I did not.
She gets to keep the county clerk job. No race at all. That's one thing. I'm okay with that. But we have a race. We have 2 people asking for this job. One guy that used to do it, one guy that's been doing it. They're both running on the re-election moniker.
So next year, if you show somebody that's not running against anybody, like you said, Sherry Witt, I'll put my name in. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to put yard signs out. Nothing. But let's see what happens.
I mean, you'll get some votes. You'll get people that are anybody but.
Yeah.
And you'll get some votes. And I'd be curious. I want you to do it because I'd be very curious to see how your anybody but vote compares to a Democrat running against a Republican in a Republican section. Because I would wager.
How many people are going, Sherry Witt, Neil... Oh.
Please write in anybody but this person.
Right, and when you go, I mean, you could do it right now. You could go tomorrow, and you could fill in your write-in candidacy. And when you're listing different crazy ways to spell your name out, one of the ways to spell your name is anybody but Sherry, anybody but Witt. Like, you put all those on your write-in. I'll bet you get a handful. Just on that, don't even advertise it. Don't even tell anybody. Just say I'm running as a write-in, and the only names you put on the list when they say how to spell your name is anybody but Sherry Witt, anybody but Witt, anybody but Sherry, anybody but the good lady that's doing it right now.
Well, I wonder, no, not just that kind of stuff, but if my name was on the ballot, being a Republican, it would be a Republican primary, right?
If you can pass your bona fides, yeah.
Bona fides? What do I do? What do I do for that?
I mean, you've got to... I mean, have you donated money to anybody's campaigns?
No.
In forever?
No.
Have you picked up anything but a Republican primary?
Nope.
Have you pulled a Republican primary for the last 6 elections?
Probably.
And you voted in all the last 6 elections?
Probably.
Okay, then you're technically bona fide. So then fine, yes, you get to you would be a Republican in a Republican primary.
And so me going against her and not doing anything, I really think voters are stupid. I think that it would be a good chance,
because it's a male name.
It's a male name that I might get elected.
I mean,
like that. Like, seriously, I think voters are that stupid that they don't look.
I mean, I would love to disagree with you. I really would. But I go off on the show all the time about how I'm willing to blame the voters on this. It is voters' fault for not bothering to take 2 minutes. 2 minutes to just figure it out. I mean, honestly, like
I'm talking no website, no, you can't look me up, nothing.
I mean, I will still do I will still do a show on you.
I'll do a show. I'll do an interview with you.
Okay. But
is that Batgirl?
That's my super hot wife. Yeah, Batgirl. I like that. I'm dating. I'm married to Batgirl.
She wearing a Batman
She's
shirt.
Batman. Yeah.
Okay, I saw that at the corner of my eye.
No, it's just Batgirl. I'm Batgirl. Yeah, she does it all the time. I'm fully distracted now, checking out my wife's butt.
Don't worry, from this vantage, we can't.
It would be a pretty convoluted sign to be like, vote for me, or write in anybody but this person, this person, this person.
That would be funny. Like, vote for me, and if you don't want...
It'd be very distracting time to drive down the road. Like, what did that say? Vote for me, but don't do this and this and that. Oh, shit, I missed it.
Okay, so on technicality's sake, and I apologize for my OCD on this one, but technicality's sake, Sherry will be term limited, so you won't be able to run against her next time. She won't be able to run again.
So I can really put my name in next time. How was that, 4 years?
Yeah, it's 4 years away.
That's what you kind of mentioned. Like, I swear
4
she's
years,
been the county clerk for like 20 years.
Yeah, I don't like. I think she was the register of deeds prior, and that's the same thing. It's a 2-term. Well, actually, no. I take it back. Most of Knox County is 2 consecutive term limits. You can run as many times as you want, but you have to take a term off every 2 terms. And you
can you get fired from that?
I mean, you can get recalled. It'd be the recall process, which is crazy impossible.
It's like I don't show up for work or whatever.
Since it's a voted-in position, it has to be recalled out.
I'm like, I mean, I'm not. I don't feel like going to work today.
There is very likely some sort of apparatus in the state that can remove you from the position elsewhere. Otherwise,
like Max has not showed up for 140 days for work. We can't get a hold of him.
I mean, no disrespect, Miss Witt, but I don't think that's much different than most of what she does anyway. I mean, honestly, like the one thing that I did learn from the show with her that I do think is a true value, but it doesn't matter who's doing it, is that she happens to be the head whatever on the thing, but there is a weekly conference call with all the clerks in the state. That is an update on any changes from the state level that the clerk's office needs to know about. And she's the head of that thing, and so she runs those meetings. But you could go in there and obviously not be the head of those meetings and sit and do whatever and not really pay attention. And at least as of right now, they're still Zooming them. That they used to do it as an in-person thing, like once every month or 2 months or something like that. So she said she had to drive to Nashville every once in a while, and they'd go and they'd meet up and they'd all, do their thing, and they'd learn about some new thing. We're coming out with these new blue plates for you guys. Here's the deal on the new blue plates. But like, other than that, and again, and like I'm not trying to disparage her in the job, but I think this is that brings me around to one of my particulars about watching these races and trying to understand what's going on. There's a lot of these positions that it doesn't matter who sits in that seat. It's really weird. It's really weird where we go for them. I don't think it matters. I think that you, if you actually put forth the effort, you would do a perfectly fine job at being the clerk.
I've read recently.
There's not much to do. You do a great job.
I've read recently, I don't know if it's necessarily in play around here, but in some with the whole disputed elections, that there's some parts of the country that have put in place to where I guess if there's a disputed election, and I guess the election commissioner is somehow devoided, but then that power then goes to the county clerk to, I guess, oversee elections. And I guess in certain cases where there's some kind of dispute,
odds are you're not going to have to worry about it.
Right. I don't know if it's in play around here, but I was like, again, I was like, wait, a county clerk? I was like, Sherry Witt?
I would fully wager that if that case were to come up or something weird like that could come up, really 90% of the job is you go to Mr. Book's office and you say, hey, Mr. Book, what the fuck does the law say about me, what I'm supposed to do right now? And then he gives you some bullshit ass answer because that's what the clerk or the law. I mean, really, like honestly, the law director's office has become probably, I think, the most important office in Knox County. Watching the school board stuff that's going on right now.
The school board's overstepped him.
Right, but that's because he was because again, like the question to me is, all right, so you're elected the law director of the Knox County. Essentially, what you are is you are the lawyer for Knox County government. And that includes State of Tennessee Schools, Knox County Division, the mayor's office, county commission, all the other offices. So like engineering, like some fucking bridge collapses, the law director's office, one of the lawyers in the law director's office.
Anything that somebody would sue the city or county over.
One of the law directors, one of the lawyers in the law director's office is on that. And so your job is, this is why this, honestly, going back in time.
Sorry, is the law director over city and county, or one or the other?
Just city has their. I believe city has their own. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I think they have their own, but I don't. I think they have their own, but it is appointed by the mayor. It is not an elected position like this one is. But going back in time, I kind of want to change my vote. I think that the mayor's office. I don't know that it should be an elected position.
The mayor's office?
No, not the mayor's office, the law director.
Oh, okay.
Because the idea of the law director is supposed to work for the different branches of the Knox County government. And right or wrong, whether you agree with Knox County Schools or not on the mask thing, it doesn't matter. Knox County Schools, the board of the Knox County School Board, doesn't want the mask on our kids, wants to take it off. There's a federal injunction on it. So the lawyers that are supposed to be working for Knox County Schools are supposed to be the ones doing everything they can figure out how to do legally to get this federal injunction to go away.
Is that gone now, though?
No.
What, like CDC says that they don't recommend?
It doesn't matter what the CDC. As far as I understand it, if the CDC said...
CDC is a guidance.
Right, but if the CDC said tomorrow that this mask thing is a joke, that everything was wrong, we were wrong about it from the beginning, let's go back to 2019, and that's how the world works, that doesn't change that. Like, by law, Knox County Schools has to enforce the mask mandate.
CDC said yesterday or the day before that they do not recommend wearing masks.
Right, they decrease their recommendation.
Doesn't matter, but that's the point. It does not matter for this one, because this is a federal judge said Knox County Schools has to wear masks, and he has the authority to do so, regardless of what the CDC says, regardless of what the school board says, regardless of what anything else is going on. He has that authority. And to the point of all that was that the law director's office is charged with, their job is to do the bidding of the school board. And I don't know if they're trying to or not. And that's one of the things that's in flux right now. We don't know. The school board did vote to say that they did have confidence in the law director's office, but then they also went around and are now going through the process of hiring outside attorneys to do it. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, who do you actually work for? You're in an elected position, so you work for us, the public. That's a weird dynamic. Because Mr. Buck, to be generous to him, even though he's a dick and won't answer my phone calls, to be generous to him, he may be acting on what he thinks his electorate wants him to do, and not push too hard on this mask thing. That may be his decision-making process, but that's not his job. His job is to do what the school board tells him to do, because he is the lawyer for the school board.
So who elects him?
We do. It's a county election.
So how is he not going with what people want?
I mean, who knows what people want?
Well, obviously, if Knox County is like, we don't need a mask.
I mean, again, I don't know that that's his mindset. Because realistically, yes, in Knox County, it should be easy. Because the school board is mostly Republicans, even though it's a nonpartisan race historically. It's still mostly Republicans. Commission is mostly Republicans. The mayor's office has been Republicans. The law director himself is a Republican. So whatever the Republicans are doing should be what the law director is doing, I would think.
Yeah.
But we also have the sheriff's office hiring outside attorneys too, because the law director is supposed to be on that. Like, so I don't know. Like, this is one of the things. Maybe I'll ask JJ about it, but I don't think it'll make sense because JJ is going to shit on it because it's a Spangler thing. Because Spangler's getting a bunch of heat because he's hired outside attorneys to help him with stuff. And if I'm JJ, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's because he's a douche. You know?
Yeah.
But
that's how some parents see it.
But if the reality is that current Sheriff Spangler says that the Knox County Law Office doesn't do good work, so I have to hire outside people. What am I supposed to do? But it's an elected office. It's a weird spot. Like, again, going back in time, I might have voted to make that a non-elected position. I don't know that changes anything per se. But at the end of the day, this is weird.
The article I read, I kind of agree that I would assume most people would agree that I don't think there's much more the law director could have done in trying to fight the suit.
That's a possibility, and I get what you're saying. I get where you're coming from, 100%.
I agree there's multiple ways to present an argument, but if your key points should be semi-similar if they are valid arguments that go before a judge.
This would be one to have Jamie and to talk to him specifically about. It's like,
sometimes it's how you present it, yeah.
Right. Is it one of those things that you present a certain set of facts, you can't represent them, even though the science has changed or whatever? You can't, you've already filed this paperwork, you can't file the same thing
That's where it gets into, like, the appeals is that if there's a ruling already made, for you then to go to appeal it, you have to have a reason for appealing that judge's position. Now, I don't think the school board, if they've already had an attorney that's gone in there and fought for this, I don't think the school board in that sense can throw in another lawyer and it's like, well, we didn't like the way they represented that case. To appeal it, I think you have to say, that they were doing it, would have to prove, I'm assuming they'd have did a insufficient job in doing it, or did you some kind of negligence or disservice, which is a high bar to try to prove.
Right. And again, I follow. I 100% follow what you're saying. I don't know.
So, a lot of parents see this as a waste of their school board's money, essentially. The school board is going around a lawyer that they already have in place to fight their battle.
Right.
And again, I wouldn't like the way they did that battle. Can we have $200,000 more to hire somebody else to
I would think it would be
argue the same case?
I would think it would be in Buck's best interest to go and push real hard to say, hey, look, we're doing everything we can. It's not that we're not trying here. It's that there's not a lot of framework where we can do anything about this. And this is what I take from what the school board is saying, is what the school board is asking us to do is basically saying, hey, man, look, we get that you can do what you're doing right now, but we're asking you to back off of this. We're not presenting new evidence. We're not changing anything. We're just saying, hey, man, look around. Look at the world we're living in right now. All this is happening. This has changed since then. You should too. And if I'm Buck, I would think that Buck would be out there actively saying, look, this is what we've done. Like this, to me, this whole process, the sheriff's merit issues with his outside attorney thing, this should be an indictment on Buck's office. And people should be talking, and that should be the conversation. Is the law director's office doing their job? Because I don't hear any pushback on it other than these other people are hiring outside attorneys and wasting taxpayer money. Well, why? Because they're not doing their job, or... I
would think they're going to have to find more than one specific case to prove that the law director is not doing their job.
But we have...
In this one... What multiple cases?
Well, the school board would be... The school board example is one. The sheriff's office is another. And that's been a long-term...
I don't know what's going on with the sheriff's office.
Spangler has had an outside attorney representing him and his officers on a number of different things going on. And this has been for a couple of years now. And I don't know if it's that Spangler has a specific issue with Buck and doesn't trust Buck, or whatever it is between Buck and Spangler. Spangler does not trust Buck to represent him or his officers. Why? That's never the conversation. All the conversation I ever hear is how much money Spangler's wasting on outside attorneys, and then most of the conversation with the school board one is why are we bringing in why are we spending extra taxpayer dollars on outside attorneys?
That would be more of a county commission thing. I thought we were specifically talking about the school board and hiring an outside attorney. It's kind of the framework that I was looking at it.
Well, I'm just saying, I guess...
From the school board's position and the law director's position, for them to try to prove that the law director is not doing their bidding, which right. I don't agree with, that they should be doing, that the lawyer should be doing your bidding.
I mean, who's the client? You're the law director of Knox County. Knox County Schools is one of your clients. You do everything you can for your client. That's like the legal code ethics thing.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding the word of bidding.
I mean, you do everything you can on behalf of your client. That is like the number one rule of lawyeriness.
Okay. Outside of the word of bidding, I'll Google it later. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the word. I've used it, but maybe I've been using it incorrectly. But I would think from their case, they're going to have to prove more than this specific case from the Knox County School Board's perspective. to try to discredit Buck, they're gonna have to have more than just this one case to say they're not doing the school's bidding.
But I mean, that's why the school board. I mean, again, this is where the layers come in appropriately. I think, because that's why the school board had to go to the commission and hey, commission, we want to bring an outside attorney in, because the commission would be the backup and say, well, no, Buck does great work. What's the problem here? So just this one thing. Well, it's more complicated than that. There's all this other stuff going on, and that's why the law director's office can't do anything about it. But the commission says, you know what, we agree with you. Buck has
county commission or school commission?
County commission.
Okay.
Because that's where the ethics charges came from on the 3 school board members that went to county commission asking for extra funds in order to hire an outside attorney.
The Sunshine Law illusion.
Sunshine was part of it, but the other big part of it was that the other part was what we talked about last week, 2 weeks ago, where it was the school board had voted in confidence of the law director's office. And by rule, if you're on the school board, you're not allowed to go against a vote. And so the argument of the ethics question is they're going against the vote of confidence that the school board put out by trying to hire an outside attorney. And so, again, the commission would be the backup, saying, okay, you're right. The law director's office hasn't done as much as they could do, and they say, here's $100,000, $200,000 to hire a new law firm to go do it.
So the Knox County School Board would have to get authorization from
Commission.
Knox County Commission to hire. Okay.
Not to hire, but for the funds in order to hire.
For the funds, yeah.
Right, which they did, and they've done, and the commission granted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's already gone through.
Yeah. Because the issue, the meeting that got them in trouble, the school board members in trouble, was a work session. And then they came back again during the actual commission meeting, which are both public meetings, which I don't know how you can get in trouble for sunshine shit in a public meeting of commission, even though you're not part of commission, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they got in trouble for going to a commission work session to pitch it.
There's allusion to, I think talking about it last week.
Right. They're on a Facebook page, a closed Facebook group. And by being elected, they're not allowed to be in a closed group with more than one of them in it. Which I was in that group. I think I got kicked out.
I thought that was where they were talking about or making some of the decisions upon it or advocating for.
I don't know that part of that.
I don't know. Yeah.
Because the other one, again, as far as I read it, the biggest ethics complaint was about the board had voted we're good with the lawyer's office or with the Knox County or the law director's office, and then they went around behind them and advocated for a different path. And by rule, you're supposed to do whatever the
I can't be voted for that.
We'll
see if we can get some people behind this other kind of movement. It's like, well, you already voted on this. You can't then turn around and try to drum up opposition to it.
Right. But again, I think but what they voted on was not a clear-cut statement that they're going against. So yeah, the law director's office is doing fine.
If you vote as a vote of confidence and then turn around and saying you don't think this person, that shows lack of confidence.
But they didn't vote on. The vote wasn't, do we want to bring out an outside legal firm or not? Like, the vote wasn't. It wasn't.
I doubt it was a vague vote and like, do you guys have faith in blah 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 blah? Right, and
then the interesting question is that
I'm assuming they knew that it was in reference
to. Is this legal for me to do this?
Yeah, I'm assuming they knew it was in reference to any kind of disputed issue that was going on at that time.
I don't know
why else they would take a vote of confidence.
I get it
if there wasn't a question of confidence.
Right, but I'm just saying in the explicit specifics of the wording of the different laws and rules that they fall under, I don't think that they actually broke any ethics rules. I think they did some shitty.
I mean, I don't know the rule about going against a previous vote.
Right, I think they did a shitty workaround. I don't know the sunshine part of it because I'm not in that group anymore. I got kicked out. But as far as the going against a vote thing, I don't think that the vote that they were going against was specific enough to say that they were doing the opposite of what the vote said. But I have to answer your question from like an hour and some change ago there, Max. Jimmy on Monday, Christy on Wednesday, Tyler Givens is one of the mayoral candidates on Wednesday, and then that voucher conversation, the pro anti-voucher discussion. We're not calling it a debate. because I'm sure as shit not good enough to host a debate. I'll host a discussion. And it's really just two people that know more about it than me that I'm going to try to find the middle ground and actually understand without their...
Is it opposing sides?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on the following Monday, I have Catherine Bike, who is running for schools, Knox County Schools in District 4, and Debbie Helsley, Helsley, who's running for mayor as well. So it's 2 of the 4 mayoral candidates. And then hopefully I can squeeze a couple more in. And then it's spring break, bitches. And then I'm going on vacay.
Where are you going? Or are you going to
Disney?
I'm going right down there too.
And so the last thing I wanted to talk about, or that I hinted at talking about, that I do want to talk about before we call it a show, unless you guys have anything else, was there was a report came out that's like Knoxville is like a top destination for young professionals or whatever, and there's some back and forth about it. Larson J put a post up. He's like, I find that kind of weird because the statistics, like whatever stats department in Knox County says we only have a 1% growth in the 25 to 40 age group in Knox County for this time period, but this whatever poll came out that said Knoxville is a great place for young adults to live and all that kind of shit. And so it gets into that conversation, like we have all this like the housing issue that we have here already that's been going crazy. And so one of the things that's happened, I was listening to one of my national podcasts where they were talking about like how this remote work that got kicked into like high gear in pandemic stuff. You know, young, or not maybe necessarily young professionals, but professionals, you know, white collar workers or whatever that used to go into an office to do the work. And then it became that thing where, you know, we're doing it remotely now and we're only doing it temporarily because of whatever. What are you nodding your head at?
This is what you were referencing, I guess, in the earlier text conversation.
Yeah, that's what I like. It's a thought process that I wanted to explore with you guys, and so that so that we have a lot of there are likely I don't know this for a fact, but there are likely a good number of people that are moving into Knox County, East Tennessee, that were working in New York or in LA or a larger city that got into remote work and then realized, hey, I can do this from anywhere. Why am I going to pay $3,000, $4,000 a month for a 700 square foot apartment where I can go get a house in Knoxville for half that, right?
Admittedly, uneducated view, I don't see that being a large percentage
of our growth. Where do you think all our growth's coming from? We don't have, I mean, okay, realistically,
yeah, in
white collar work, middle to lower upper class. I don't know how to phrase that. You know, probably the low 6-figure jobs. How many new low 6-figure jobs have come into Knox County in the last 5 years?
No fucking clue. I don't know.
I don't think it's a lot. But with the price of housing, there has to be people making that kind of money to buy the houses that are moving here. The people that are buying houses the second they hit the market, before they hit the market. You know, it's like, hey, we're about to show this house. I'll give you 10% over listed.
Because people don't buy things they can't afford.
I mean, I'm sure they
can't get a loan for.
I mean, if you can't get a loan, you can't buy it.
Right. Are loans hard to come by?
I mean, not too bad. Dude, they're not great. We can't get a loan for a piece of land.
What?
I mean, I don't see the housing market just being flooded just by people that... I mean, just... Sorry, in your specific example of people trying to work remotely, which is a rare thing in itself.
I don't know about that being a rare thing in and of itself. Maybe you may be right as far as people coming to Knoxville with that job, but it's not... There are a lot of people that aren't going back to the office and that are staying remote. Some places are doing hybrid shit, but there's a lot of places that are losing.
I mean, I would argue there's more larger kind of realty investment companies, whatever, snatching up more property than these remote workers coming here snatching up property.
I mean, that may be 100% true. Doesn't change the idea, and really doesn't. I mean, we haven't gotten to the.
I would think it discredits the idea.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the point that I'm trying to get to, but
I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish your point.
No, I mean, again, it is a thing. There are stats for the thing. There are people that are leaving big cities that are getting that got remote work temporarily that become permanent and got out of town.
Right, but I'd say it's more likely people leaving a big city to move to a more cost-effective area versus people that were living in a big city that moved to somewhere else that are now just working remotely. Right.
What? Yes, they could continue to work the job that they had, whether they're in the city or not, so they moved to a more cost-effective place. I
would think there was more people that had a job in a higher-paying city that moved to a lower-cost living area to find a different job versus someone that was living in a high-cost area that had a job moving to a low-income area, keeping that same job to work remotely.
No, I'll have to get my...
I agree that for years
I'll have to find somebody that can verify the idea.
That high-income areas, eventually there's going to come to a point where people are being priced out of living in New York City, L.A., and these major markets.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily just moved here like, I can go move down there and still do my same job.
I mean,
and just work remotely.
Right. It is happening, but you could be correct that it may have very little impact.
Because if they did that, I'm sorry, that they're idiotic because that job is not going to remain to be remote.
I don't know.
I would say at least 75% of jobs that went remote fully intend to go back to in person. I agree. There's a lot of jobs that are able to be done remotely.
I think there's a lot that are staying remote or giving remote an option. I think there's value in that as the company. I think that's the point I'm trying to get to. As the company, if I'm the company and we figured out that we can work remote and we can have good employees that work remotely, I would be out recruiting in lower cost of living places, and I can get as good employees for less.
That's the point that I fully agree. There's definitely been like a rethink of even a major company and one like High Rise that had every other day had a meeting up on the 51st floor in that conference room or whatever. We're like, instead of having everybody stop what they're doing, taking 20 minutes to go get on the elevator, go up the elevator, get in this conference room, wait for everybody to settle down and get set up, that we could have just, even in that same building, just FaceTimed or Zoomed from there.
Right.
And in that same token, they could do the same thing from home.
Right. Which, if I'm the company, I don't have to own or rent a giant office building anymore.
Right. I think it has brought about a questioning of
right, and I can find lower cost employee. Like if that's what I was getting to. Like why? Like I would think that I would go out if that was what I was doing. If I was embracing the idea that I'm going to go with a fully remote workforce, that I would go out and go to lower cost of living places, get people that are fully capable of doing the job that don't expect the New York City salary, pay them more than what they would be making locally in a local office, let them do it remotely there. I have lower labor costs. I have lower overhead because I don't have a big office building, and I can still get the work I want done. Because one of the things that I'd heard about, at least in this conversation, is that you have a lot of people moving, maybe not to Knoxville per se, but out of LA's, out of New York's, out of Chicago's, that are working remotely and moving to lower cost of living places, but keeping that high salary, which is one of the things that's driving up some housing prices. Because when you leave LA and you buy a house in Knoxville, you're getting 4 times as much house for half the price.
Right.
And so that's driving the demand up for housing in lower cost areas, which is driving the cost of living up for people that are used to living here. And so again, my question in the whole conversation was really about that pay structure thing, is that when are the companies going to say, oh, well, instead of paying for Johnny to move out of LA and do his job remotely from somewhere else, why don't I go find somebody from Knoxville that can do this job remotely? Because I'm going to have it done remotely anyway. And I can pay less for labor because a Knoxville person is going to be okay with a lower salary because it's cheaper to live in Knoxville. That's what I'm waiting to see in this conversation about remote work. It's not it wasn't necessarily about the housing cost and all that kind of shit. That was part of the conversation. But to me, is like, if I have a company that can function remotely, why am I hiring anybody that demands that high salary because they live in a major city that's expensive to live in? I would go to, Wyoming, Colorado, rural areas that are cheaper, and see if I can't recruit people there and pay them half. and they'll be happy with half because that's way more than they would be making working in the Amazon warehouse that's down the street or whatever. That's the thought process that I was trying to chase down.
I mean, I would agree. It's definitely opened up a broader market. If, as a company, you were looking for someone that can and that you want solely to just be able to work remotely. In some positions, that is possible.
Right. And it's a foreign thought to me because I've never worked a job that would make sense.
Right. That's what I mean. I think it's kind of going back to the education. That I think we have been kind of in a compounding, technological advances to where it's hard for teachers to teach things that are then obsolete 4 years later.
That is a huge secondary issue in the whole conversation.
All right.
All right.
Like, what do we want kids to learn? It's like, well, shit. What are they going to need to know in 4 years from now?
That's one of the things I've talked to some of the school board people about. Is when are we going to, are we having real conversations about what the work is going to be in 10, 15 years? If you're a kindergartner right now...
And that's when it's becoming harder and harder to predict.
Right. If you're a kindergartner right now, what are the actual job opportunities going to be when you graduate high school?
There's no fucking telling.
Yeah.
There's people... We're a market-driven society.
Right. But there are people that can do pretty good at predicting parts of that. Maybe not super accurately, but there's... Yeah. But I don't know if I hear that. Maybe that discussion's happening and I just don't know about it. But I don't hear that as part of the public conversation. Realistic. That was one of the Andrew Yang things. The whole universal basic income, the whole conversation about universal basic income was, in the next decade or two, manufacturing's done. We're going to automate it out. We're going to automate out phone service as far as customer service on the phone calls. It's all going to be computers. It's going to be AI doing a lot of that work. How much of this stuff are we going to automate out of existence? His solution is universal basic income, which I'm interested in. It's worth talking about. But again, for the sake of our kids, it's what are they going to be doing? What actual jobs are going to exist anymore? It's you can fix the computer, maybe. But hell, at what point are they going to start fixing themselves? It's getting real. All right, anyway, last call. Anything else?
Nah.
Max, you want to do the outro for me? One of these days, we're going to figure out how to do this outro. We're going to pass it off. I'm going to say a sentence, and you're going to say a sentence.
I've done a few.
You have. Sam's a champ like that. We're Almost in Agreement, almostinagreement@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can go to our website, almostinagreement.com. That's where all the cool stuff is, mainly my voter guide 22. Full list of everybody that's running, what seat they're in. If they have a website or something, I'm working on getting their links to their website if you want to look more about them. If I've done a show with them, it's got a link with the show with them. It also has KGIS and the Election Commission, so you can go there. Make sure you're registered to vote. Find out where your polling place is, what district you're in, so you know who you're actually allowed to vote for. As we mentioned a couple times in the show, I got a bunch of stuff coming up. I got Jimmy J.J. Jones on Monday, as well as a couple of mayoral candidates coming up, and then I'm really excited about that Friday where we're going to have a school voucher kind of student first funding discussion, try to figure out some of that kind of stuff. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and then your favorite podcast provider. Please subscribe, like, share, retweet, whatever the thing is that those sites do to up our numbers. The higher our numbers get, the more people can find us easier. Good night, everybody.